It all starts in the capital of Antares. A dragon is roaring, spewing fire, stomping on everything. Destruction everywhere. A guy on a horse asks how the war is going, and the other man replies that they've already lost 200,000 and over 300,000 are injured. Still, all of it would be worth it, since the Demon King is about to die and the world will finally be cleansed. Meanwhile, in the main hall of the castle, the hero Alex von Helene declares that the villain's crimes end today. Standing before the Demon King's throne, they announce that it's time for him to return to the shadows. That damn man, the Emperor of Antares, an old guy known as Cyrus, says that today's destruction has fallen upon his own empire. But Lepenhart asks why they insist on calling his empire, Antares, an evil place. The sun and moon rise there just like anywhere else in the world. Then the hero of fists, known as Tesserin, says that the corrupted creatures the king created would vanish with him today. But the king argues that he never passed any corrupt energy onto those beings. All he did was teach them how to survive and fight, just like humans do. He leans forward and asks if the four kings have fallen. Cyrus replies yes. That filthy orc couldn't stand up to his sword. Lepenhart can't believe he really killed the legendary Tacit. The truth is, orcs might seem like savages, but they were actually innocent, loyal creatures who lived off hunting and gathering. Tesserin then says it's ridiculous they were ever called the Four Warrior Kings anyway, especially since that troll paid the price for his sins. Lepenhart remembers the one called Guru Atika and thinks to himself that even though trolls look menacing, they were just natural beings trying to cleanse their souls. St. Ellen then speaks up, saying that the strange dwarf who worshipped the gods of darkness was also put on the right path. The protagonist puts his hand over his face, thinking that these bastards really believe anyone who doesn't worship their same god must automatically admire the dark ones. The mage named Jade chimes in, saying that the dark elf has also passed on. Right then, Lepenhart remembers a healthy, fertile blonde girl, and apparently they can kill everyone but not that one, because now he's furious, demanding to know if they really are that eager to die. Tesserin shouts that dark elves were beings consumed by darkness, and they didn't deserve any form of mercy. Lepenhart fires back that she's not a dark elf, she's just a tan elf. Literally, humans destroy the elves' forests, and now they're forced to walk around in the sun, so that's why she got a tan. But clearly, the hero completely ignores what he's saying. Alex says that with that sword, the end would come for him. The Demon King's eyes darken. He says there's no point in talking anymore, and the hero replies that if it weren't for the evil powers he possessed, the creatures wouldn't have been corrupted. Lepenhart realizes the conversation is going nowhere. To them, any race that didn't live as their slave was automatically a creature of darkness. The hero charges forward, and Lepenhart says fine. He'll become the Demon King they're so eager for him to be. Half the room erupts in flames. He starts explaining that a long time ago, he was just a simple archmage. Humans had already stopped seeing other races as beings with the same intelligence. Elves were viewed as pretty servants with long lifespans. Dwarves made perfect mining slaves thanks to their dexterity. Orcs were the strong laborers, and trolls were used to harvest healing potions. Every race was treated as if they were property, stripped of dignity. But during one of his expeditions, Lepenhart ended up meeting some of these tribes, and through that, he began to understand how they lived. At the same time, he started learning about the unique magic each race carried, from the elves' elemental control to the witchcraft practiced by trolls. That's how he became the first person in history to reach the 10th circle of magic. His way of thinking began to change. He grew tired of watching other races being enslaved and began rescuing anyone suffering under that system. The issue was that his territory kept expanding, and it became harder to hide from humans. Eventually, he was under attack from armies without even understanding why. The truth was, their technology and strength were far more advanced. So just by defending himself, the village started to grow more and more. And that's how the Empire of Antares was born. He hadn't created it out of hatred for humans, but to serve as a refuge for the other races. Yet now everything was destroyed. Even though the people living there were peaceful, just looking for a safe place to exist, humans still claimed that anyone from that land was a worshipper of the Demon King. Maybe the sight of an army made up of multiple races was intimidating, but that was no excuse to slaughter innocent people. Activating his magic, he says that, as the ruler of this land, it's his duty to protect the empire. And man, Alex von Helene couldn't even handle the first spell. He went flying and hit the ground hard, totally wiped out. Lepenhart says people call him a hero because he's skilled in both swordplay and magic, but clearly, he hasn't mastered either. In the end, the strongest were always the specialists. And now he was face to face with one, the King of Fists, a man with strength and endurance like no other. The others were easy to handle, but this guy was different. Tesserin immediately lunges at him. Lepenhart dodges, fully aware that this is the one person who spent his entire life training a single technique. Beating someone like that wouldn't be simple. Suddenly, the outer barrier of the castle explodes, crashing down in chunks. And when Lepenhart turns his head, Tesserin is already charging in, ready to slant his elbow through the black shield, shouting that victory would be theirs. Man, the Demon King takes a brutal blow to the head, blood's dripping down, but he says he's fine. He used magic to block the impact. Still, he knows that if this keeps up, there's no way he can win, not while he's still trying to think up a plan. Tesrin draws closer, saying he's going to send him to a peaceful place. Leopinhart's still fixing his skull when Tesrin adds that he'll be free from that evil nature inside him. That's when the Demon King realizes Tesrin, like the others, truly believed that the only natural way for any other race to exist was as a slave. Stucky pulls something from his eye and says it's an ancient artifact, known as the Eye of Spacetime. Not even he, the only 10-circle mage, had managed to figure out how to use it. Tesrin asks what he's planning, and Leopinhart says that now he's going to rewrite space and time. That artifact tampered with the flow of time itself and gave its wielder the ability to break natural laws. He had no idea how to activate it, but he had nothing left to lose. So he tells Tesrin to go ahead and try to stop him, if he thinks he can. Of course, Tesrin leaps forward to punch him mid-activation, shouting that he's not going to die like this. A flash of light hits both of their faces, and Leopinhart swears he's not going down like this, no way. But it looks like Tesrin's punch lands right on the relic. Smoke bursts out, engulfing the top of the castle. A massive ball of energy starts forming, and Tesrin keeps punching right through it. The thing keeps expanding, and from the looks of it, the entire empire was wiped out. The scene shifts. A calm little bird sits quietly on a branch near a cozy cabin in a peaceful, quiet place. The curtains flutter in the breeze as someone inside wonders what that chirping sound is. He feels warm and comfortable. Slowly, his eyes start to open. He wants to know if that relic actually worked. When it came to magic, he knew he was a genius. But he never expected to activate that thing by brute force. He sits up, trying to figure out exactly where he is. He's sure he traveled through time, but this place doesn't look familiar at all. From the look on your face, you're probably already guessing what happened, right? A foot hits the floor, and the guy's rocking a size 59 shoe. He says that even the toughest men would shed a tear after seeing the body this guy's got. But who is this freak in the mirror? His hands are covered in calluses. Scars cover his entire body, and on top of his muscles, there are more muscles, and even more muscles stacked on top of those. Man, but none of this makes sense. He's a mage. He specializes in summoning and casting magic circles. What's he supposed to do with a perfectly carved six-pack? And what's with that ugly face? He used to be confident in his looks. The elf girls loved him. He stares at the mirror, wondering what happened to his handsome face and why his muscles keep flexing on their own. He starts questioning whether the relic malfunctioned or if he somehow ended up in someone else's body. There's also the possibility that this isn't the past at all. Maybe he just switched minds with some random guy. Now he's got thick eyebrows, a square jaw, and if he let a beard grow out, he'd look exactly like the King of Fists, Tesrin. And right at that moment, someone calls out that name, asking when the lazy bum's finally gonna get out of bed. A massive dude, probably 16 feet tall, storms in. He wants to know what Tesserin's still doing inside. The sun's already up. He should have started morning training by now. The old man scratches his beard, saying Tesserin's looking at him like he's never seen him before. And Tesrin replies that, well, he really doesn't know who the guy is. The man tells him to quit using that old "I lost my memory" excuse. He's already pulled that trick twice, and it's not gonna work again. He grabs the kid's head like it's a tennis ball and drags him off. Now it's all clear. Leopinhart, the 10-circle mage, ended up in the body of the strongest man in the world. And I guess I'm gonna have to start calling him Tesrin from now on. Otherwise, nothing's gonna make sense. I can't be switching names every 2 lines after all. Everyone around him's going to call him Tesrin anyway. So that's that. And judging by everything happening around him, this guy must be Tesrin's trainer, the one who held the title of King of Fists before him, a man known as Gerard Chrome. The poor guy's already got his leg all tied up and is begging the old man to hear him out for a second. But Gerard just covers his mouth and says that for some reason he's way too talkative today. Man, the guy grabs a piece of bamboo and says the training's about to begin. Next thing you know, whack, straight to the abs, and the poor mage is already crying, trying to figure out what the hell is going on. But that's just the beginning. The hits keep coming. The kid starts remembering Cyrus, that fierce little elf girl, and thinks this is the end of the line. Gerard, on the other hand, is wondering why his body feels weaker than usual today. Looks like the kid really did lose his memories somehow. But whatever, that doesn't matter much. After all, the Academy of the Indomitable was famous for its brutal training. It wasn't unheard of for people to lose their memory from taking too many beatings, but sooner or later he'd recover, especially with more beatings. Obviously, the fastest way to fix it was to beat him even harder. As he's smacking the poor guy around, Gerard starts ranting about how humans are weak because they rely on weapons. Only fools would choose armor and a sword over pushing their own body to be unbreakable. Tarzan pipes up asking what's so wrong with using tools, only to get absolutely chewed out by the old man, who says that kind of thinking just proves a person's weakness. A true fighter trains his flaws and overcomes them instead of hiding behind equipment. The human body is like steel. Hit it enough and it'll grow stronger. The poor guy's still tied up, helpless to do anything. And while Gerard keeps pummeling him, he's thinking not everyone gets stronger with training. It's rare to find someone who can go from iron to steel. And that's exactly why he has to make the most of someone like this. He goes right back to thrashing the poor soul, saying that he'll have to discover the vast ocean within himself. But all the poor kid can think about are those warm days in the sun with Cirrus. That was peace. Now the sun's setting, and after an entire day of getting beat to a pulp, Gerard finally says training's over and he can rest for a bit. Shaking all over, the kid thanks him. Back in his cabin, though, he's completely stunned. He's literally soaking in a tub full of potion. And in this world, potions cost 10 silver coins each. To fill a whole bathtub, you can't even begin to imagine how much that cost. He asks Gerard why they're doing this, and the old man explains, metal has to be cool before it can be hammered again. Lepenhart starts to understand the logic behind the training. They push the muscles to the brink of destruction, nearly to death, and immediately use aura and potions to regenerate. That way, the body recovers before it even feels the full cost of all that damage. It's actually a highly efficient method of building endurance, proving that this approach isn't just senseless brutality. And he knows firsthand how tough Tesserun's body was in that fight. At least now, he's sure he really is in the past. But then that leaves the question, what happened to Lepenhart in this timeline? Where is his younger body now? And what is it doing? Could two versions of the same soul really exist in a single timeline? To him, there are only two possible answers. First, that the younger version of him is currently alive and well in his original body, while his older mind is stuck in Tesserun's. Second, that the younger Lepenhart's body is now carrying the soul of the King of Fists. Next scene, Lepenhart brings over a mountain of food, telling him to dig in. He needs to flood his body with nutrients after pushing it that far. And as soon as he finishes eating, they're already climbing a mountain. Gerard says he has to work hard to earn that meal. Up top, he's doing one-finger push-ups while Gerard asks if life's really that easy for him. The poor guy's doing crunches on the edge of a cliff, and then boom, back in bed, totally destroyed. But at this point, there's only one thing on his mind. What's going on with his old body? He has no clue how all this is going to affect the future, and what's going to happen if this body ends up meeting his past self. The existence of a single soul was said to be an unbreakable rule of the universe, so maybe, just maybe, there was a tiny chance both souls could end up being destroyed. He also remembers that young Lepenhart still has 10 years before he even starts working as a warlock. Right now, he's probably buried in books at the Magic Tower. But what if Tesserun really did take over his body? That bastard would definitely come hunting for him. But thing is, Tesserun's strength came from his insane physique, and Lepenhart, man, he was a scrawny twig. The training Gerard put him through required help from someone else. There's no way he could handle it on his own. But then again, it's Tesserun. If anyone could find a way to train solo, it'd be that guy. Either way, there he is, stepping out the door, saying his top priority is escaping this hell. And right then, he stomps off, declaring that he's never coming back to this place again. But of course, the moment he steps outside, his teacher's already standing there asking where his precious student thinks he's going. Our boy is stunned, trying to figure out how the hell this guy's already out here. Was he always just standing around waiting? Scratching his chin, Gerard says it's been about 9 months since his last escape attempt. This one makes 9. The kid tries to explain that he's not Tesserun. His name is Lepenhart, and he's a mage. Gerard tells him that's a pretty creative story. This time, he really came up with a good one. Last time, it was some tale about being from another world and having met gods and dragons. Before that, he claimed to be the reincarnation of some martial artist from an eastern continent. But this new one about being a wizard named Lepenhart, that one's pretty convincing. He bonks him on the head and says it's time to go back to sleep. And just like that, the poor guy gets yanked back by his hair. Clearly, escaping isn't going to happen. Next scene, he tries to sneak out early in the morning, but gets caught again. Tried escaping underwater, caught again. Dragged straight back to the mountain. The man who, in the future, would earn the title of King of Fists, right now is just desperately trying to run away from training. And Gerard says his training method has been used for over 130 years, and not once has a single student managed to escape. Tesserun knows even if he did get away, that old man would hunt him down across the world and eventually drag him back. Maybe the smarter option is to just earn permission to leave the mountain. And so 2 years go by. He's being slammed into a wall by a massive weight. Suddenly, the chains snap to the ground. Gerard congratulates him for awakening his aura. Tesserun knows that even Cyrus, the famed sword hero known for his aura, didn't awaken his until after he turned 20. But Gerard wants to know why this idiot looks so surprised. That was the bare minimum expected from this training. The physical endurance he developed was syncing with his survival instincts. As that connection grew, so did his vitality, and with it, his energy. And from that, aura is born. Now that he's awakened it, it's time to learn some new techniques. Our guy asks what kind of training or ability he'll be learning now. To which Gerard replies, now they're going to start throwing punches at each other. And so the beatings continue. 3 more years pass. The scene shifts to the middle of a waterfall. Tesserun standing still, focused. He activates the Horn of Calamity, gathering aura into his fist. He's about to throw the Shiryu punch. Arm pulled back and a punch straight into the cliff wall. He says he managed to stack 3 layers. That seems to be his current limit. This was a relatively simple technique that let him compress all the energy in his body into a single blow. The aura was layered in stages, which is why it's called a horn, like a horn's rings and ridges. At its peak, a skill could form 9 layers. Rumor had it that at that level, it could even kill a god. Even Tesserun from his previous life had only made it to 7. His master once told him that the day he reached 4 stacks, he'd finally be allowed to leave the mountain. But it looks like the old man had gone off to the village, so he'd have to wait for him to come back. Now, if this were the past version of him, he'd already be using this chance to try and escape. But this was actually the perfect moment for him to try something else. The kid starts practicing Lepenhart's old magic. Yeah, the Demon King's power. For some reason, I assumed he was just going to stick with punching, right? But I forgot. He can still use the spells from his past life, as long as he can gather up enough mana. He mumbles something about becoming one with the void, creating a bullet that pierces enemies and fires it straight at a tree. And yeah, it just leaves a burn mark. Compared to the punch that shattered a mountain, it's clearly way weaker. The poor guy scratches his head. For all the knowledge he has, his body just doesn't cooperate. He's starting to wonder if becoming a mage in this state is even possible. His brain barely works well enough to do the calculations. But right then, he senses something nearby. And whatever it is, he knows it's not human. A green paw steps into view and an orc carrying a sword appears. Tezrin locks eyes with him, and the orc just says to pretend he never saw anything. Otherwise, he'll die. Lepenhart figures that, judging by his size, this orc is about 3 or 4 years old. Really young. Looks like he ran away from some battle or something. At least the fact that he's talking and telling Tezrin to stay out of it shows that orcs aren't naturally aggressive. They'd rather avoid conflict. Tezrin asks if the young orc is being hunted. The green kid looks confused and wants to know how Tezrin speaks his language. Tezrin says he's met a few orcs before. The creature lowers his head and says the fates have blessed this encounter. Yes, he's being pursued. Tezrin tells him he can help, but only if the orc is willing to trust him. The orc says anyone who speaks his language so fluently is like a brother. Plus, he can tell Tezrin has a genuine soul. Tezrin can't help but notice. This orc speaks in an oddly refined, almost royal tone. Probably has some noble blood in him. So Tezrin agrees to help. He starts chanting, opens a kind of portal inside the cave, and says that magic will keep him safe. The orc, surprised, asks if he's really a mage. Tezrin says, of course, obviously. But with that jacked body of his, the orc replies that there's nothing obvious about it. It makes no sense at all. Still, he's grateful. As soon as the orc enters the portal, Tezrin hears someone approaching. A group of bounty hunters shows up, grumbling about how much effort they're putting in just for a few silver coins. One of them asks Tezrin if he's seen an orc come through. Another guy says he'll give him a gold coin if he tells the truth. His buddy asks if he's actually going to pay up, and the guy laughs, saying, no way, just fooling that musclehead from the mountain. Tezrin simply says he hasn't seen anything, but then one of them spots the tracks. He says it's clearly orc footprints, and that the creature must have gone this way. Tezrin realizes he forgot to cover that part, but calmly tells them that nobody's allowed to enter his home. One of the soldiers glares at him and asks if he's lost his mind, and if he's actually asking to die. Tezrin just stands there, arms crossed, staring them down. The others start whispering that he's looking pretty ripped, they should be careful. Then a purple magic circle forms beneath his feet, and he remembers what his master told him. His fists were the deadliest weapons in the world. And that's exactly why using a weapon was an act of mercy, because wielding one actually made him weaker. So he grabs a big old club and tells the guys not to worry, at least they won't die from getting beaten with this. The hunters panic and all charge at once. Tezrin clenches his jaw, and in the next instant, they're all turned into chibi ragdolls. There's still one soldier trying to keep fighting, but Tezrin, yeah, for him, this is already getting boring. He ends up getting distracted in the middle of his thoughts, and one of the hunters lands a clean hit right to his ribs, only for his sword to go all floppy. Tezrin turns around and slams the guy with a hammer blow, wondering if this body of his even makes sense. There's no way he's human, right? And with that, the poor fools get absolutely flattened. At least Tezrin's calm about it. They're not going to die from this weapon after all. One of the trembling soldiers asks him to identify himself, his voice shaking like a leaf. Tezrin just smacks him across the face and says he's got way too much energy to be wasting on questions. Not long after, the whole group is retreating, apologizing as they leave. Tezrin's standing there holding the weapon, thinking he's getting way too used to this academy life. Right at that moment, the orc appears again, saying he's incredibly grateful, that Tezrin had saved him and he would never forget that until the day he died. Lepenhart tells him a warrior shouldn't bow his head so easily, but the orc replies that Tezrin is now his mentor, and that when the time came, he could count on his sword. Tezrin knows that in orc culture, a mentor is someone they deeply respect, almost like a sacred figure. The orc then asks his name. Strangely, Tezrin starts to say Tezrin, but stops. He says his name is Lepenhart Walled Antares. So I guess I've been calling him Tezrin for no reason, huh? The guy's sticking with Lepenhart after all. And the orc says he'll remember that name. Our boy then asks what options he really has. The humans are taking over the world, so where is he even supposed to go? The orc answers that the continent is vast. There has to be a place where he can live in peace, not as a slave. Lepenhart mentions a land far to the southeast, a place known as the Mountains of Rakid, about a 2-week journey away, in a region called the Land of Challenges. He heard of a tribe of orcs hiding out there, known as the Blue Bear Tribe. Apparently, that was all the orc needed to hear. He thanks him and immediately dashes off. Lepenhart then realizes he forgot to ask his name. The orc stops and says, I am the son of Crota, bearer of the last axe. My name is Tacit. Tacit, the same Tacit who, if you remember, fought beside him and was one of the 4 great knights who died. Which is weird, right? That guy ended up becoming the leader of the Blue Bear tribe. So how did that happen if he met Tesserin in the other life? With a personality like his, that bastard would never have helped an orc. So clearly fate went in some very strange direction. Still, it was a bizarre connection. He thinks back on the Empire, on Tacit, the orcs, the elf girl, and the dwarf as he sits smiling on the throne. He hopes that someday he'll get the chance to meet all of them again. 6 months go by after that strange encounter with Tacit. Gerard prepares for a leap and tells him to brace himself. A burst of energy explodes, and man, you'd think the kid would be braver after all this time, but nope. He's standing there, scared out of his mind. He activates the spiral guard just in time, and Gerard congratulates him, saying he's finally mastered it. Felt like it was just yesterday that he was still calling himself Leppenhart and trying to run away from this place. Our boy replies that was 6 years ago, so why is he bringing it up now? To which Gerard says they've been training together for 10 years, but it's only now that he's finally showing progress. The only question left, why is he still so short? Leppenhart protests, saying he's 1.90 meters. He's not short, but Gerard fires back that every descendant of this academy is at least 2 meters tall. He must be skipping those breathing exercises he was assigned. That reminds Leppenhart that, yeah, the Tesserin from his old life was actually around 2.3 meters tall. So for some reason, he ended up shorter, which clearly is why he doesn't want to use that particular technique. I mean, come on. The guy's already way too big as it is. The scene shifts back to the waterfall. Gerard tells him to go ahead and show the final result. Tesserin focuses his energy, takes a leap into the air, and activates the Horn of Calamity. He slams down the 4-layered impact and the water explodes upward, trembles, and suddenly it's like an entire ocean begins to fracture. Rocks crack and fly in every direction. Gerard smiles, saying that finally, Tesserin wouldn't have to get beat up anymore just to leave this mountain. Tesserin himself is stunned. Gerard tells him that the time had come. It was finally time for him to leave that place and take on the world. He had truly worked hard. And now the boy, Leppenhart, could live however he chose. Whether he wanted to do good or evil didn't matter. What mattered was that he lived on his own terms. That was the reward for all the years of brutal training he endured. Our guy's getting kind of emotional, and then Gerard shares something. 60 years ago, the third king of fists gave him some advice. Actually, 3 pieces of advice. The first, make a lot of money, but never through dishonest means. Leppenhart asks how that even makes sense, being a villain but not stealing. Gerard replies that if you're going to be a villain, at least be a classy one. A person who still holds on to dignity. That just leaves the poor guy even more confused. What's this nonsense about dignified villains? Gerard ignores the reaction and moves on. Second tip, always stand by those who've been wronged. If you're going to live a good life, then live one that earns respect. Leppenhart asks, what if the one who did wrong isn't weaker? And Gerard says, the weaker one isn't always the victim. And besides, you're way too strong. Almost everyone's gonna be weaker than you. So judging by that doesn't make any sense. But the third and most important rule, don't let the legacy of the indomitable die. Someday you have to find a student and pass it all down. Looking at Gerard from the side, Leppenhart still does seem a bit short. He tells the master they'll remember all of it. Gerard tosses a backpack his way and says that finding someone talented is extremely rare. So don't spend your whole life looking. Just make sure that when you do find someone, you don't let them slip away. The pack has a bit of money and some travel clothes, but our boy looks a little disappointed. He only got 30 silver coins. From what he knows, his master was one of the richest people in the whole kingdom. But Gerard just shrugs and says it's tradition to pay students poorly. When he left, he only got 25. To cheer him up a little, though, he mentions a special gift hidden on a certain mountain. Location marked on the map. He should stop by if he's nearby. Fully dressed, pack on his back, Leppenhart asks himself if he really can just leave like this. He's gotten so used to the mountain life, he's not even sure what living free feels like anymore. But then, from the middle of the mountain, a surge of aura rises, and he hears Gerard's voice. Don't let this farewell weigh down your departure. Honor the legacy of mastering one of the most powerful techniques in the world. And just like that, the poor guy takes off, sprinting down the mountain, ready to face the world. Scene change, a small house in a city. An old man tells his boss that this is way too risky, but the elder says if no one else is going to speak up, he will. A knight asks what the old man wants, and the elder calmly says they need to be paid for the food and for the stay. The knight tosses him a gold coin, saying these damn fools don't know a thing about honor. That should be more than enough. The old man glances at it, and the knight's certain the guy's never even seen one of those before, until the elder replies that it's far from enough. The knight glares at him and asks if he thinks he's stupid, like he doesn't know market prices, and then he punches the old man in the face, saying he's got guts to try and scam a knight like that. But the elder only thinks to himself, these bastards are nothing but common bandits. They've taken the house, the food, and now they want to offer a single coin in return. Suddenly, someone asks old man Edward what's wrong. He turns and says to Stefan, it's nothing. But the bastard just chimes in, saying this place is full of miserable people. That's why he can't show mercy to commoners. They don't know their place, and they don't know when to stop. Next chapter, we cut to the chill life Lepenhart used to live, all skinny and bony, what really matters is that he had a smiling blonde elf girl by his side, right? She once told him he was graceful, like a finely crafted blade. Now staring into the mirror, he wonders what kind of cursed golem he's turned into. At least he's a lot taller now. That part's great. At this point, Cyrus must be about 70 years old. In human years, that's around 17, but elves live way longer. And this is the city of Krone, in the southern region of Vasily. She's supposed to be sold off next year, and right now, she's probably at the slave house in the region of Chaitin. He starts wondering if the first thing he should do is go over there, destroy the auction, and just snatch her back. But if he does that, he'd be interfering with his own path, messing with the future far too much. It'd be much smarter to just earn the money instead of drawing attention. The problem is, an elven slave costs a fortune, and right now he's got less than 30 silver coins, most of it already spent on lodging. But none of that matters, really. He's got the body, he's mastered the techniques, and he has the memories of the future. On top of that, he knows of a certain ruin located nearby. Cut to Stefan again, asking Todd if he's found the relics yet. Todd tells him to give it a minute. Todd's a mage specialized in exploration and tracking, someone they hired. From the window, Stefan asks if he's sure about the location. Todd says, "Trust me, it's the same place the legendary swordsman Claude von Leota once explored." Back to Lepenhart now. It's been 3 days since he left the city of Krone. This body of his is incredible. He can walk straight for hours without hunger, without cold. His stamina is endless. On top of that, he has a skill from his past life called artificial phantasmagoria. It allows him to remember anything with perfect detail, like it happened just yesterday. And in that past life, he once met a mage named Todd, who mentioned the ruins of House Altine. Using that memory, he and Cyrus went there and found a whole stash of treasure Todd's team had overlooked. Selling everything, they managed to gather over 2,000 gold coins. So yeah, that's the place to go. From atop the mountain, he sees the village of cattle. Looks exactly the same as always. Down in the village, an old man is asking what they should do. The Valley of Death is a place no one should ever go near. Another elder replies that those noble bastards begged them for a guide. If they refused, there'd be consequences. A man on the right says their boss got injured looking for this place. The other guy loses his temper, shouting that nobles are disgusting. In the middle of all that, a man pulls out a bow and says he'll go. He's the best climber in the village. No one else could do it. His wife and daughter burst into tears while he's thinking, "Someone please save me. I really don't want to do this." The other men, though, are patting him on the back, saying he's got the heart of a winner. Of course he's going to make it. And then, boom, Lepenhart's face appears at the window, and he says he'll go. The guy yells, thanking him, but then spins around with the bow drawn, asking who he is. Our boy answers calmly, "I'm just a traveler. Happened to overhear your conversation by accident." He steps into the room and they ask if he's familiar with the area. He nods, "Very well." The guys say it's impossible. If he really knew the place, there's no way he'd agree to go to the Valley of Death. But our boy just tells them he's already been there before, so he's not worried. Meanwhile, he's thinking to himself that these bastards are lucky. He just saved one of their lives. The Valley of Death, that's what people around here call it. But the truth is, it's a dungeon, a remnant from the Silver Era long since forgotten. 50 years ago, a knight awakened his aura at the age of 45, which was considered young back then. The problem? With all the fame he gained, he forgot his limits. He entered the Valley of Death, alone, and died. And with him, the legendary blade known as the demonic sword of Altien was lost deep within those ruins. Since then, the tale has been passed down like a myth. And now, out of nowhere, our guy is walking with that group, Stefan's crew. The elf girl's all fired up, saying he looks so elegant when riding a horse. He replies that Relsh's words bring him real joy. Lepenhart's just watching from the side, realizing these bastards are having the time of their lives. Also in the group is a redhead named Silent. He notices she's beautiful and young, but he starts wondering if she can really cast high-level healing spells. Actually, forget all that. Harboy admits he can't believe he's even still a man. It's weird. He's just looking for a chance to talk to Todd, who in his past life was obviously a big fan, back when Lepenhart was a prodigy mage. But now he's picking up on some weird tension between Scylla and Todd. He wonders, is Todd into the cute one? Then shakes his head. No way. Todd was never that kind of guy. Suddenly, Todd comes up to him and says he made a great decision agreeing to be their guide. Everyone else in the village was too afraid to volunteer. Lepenhart replies that it's only natural they'd be scared. But then Edward jumps in saying fear doesn't make sense. Not when they're traveling with the bravest knights in the entire kingdom. Our boy is already fighting the urge to crush this arrogant idiot's skull. Clearly, the guy thinks he's way stronger than he actually is. Then suddenly, a strange noise echoes through the woods. The trees begin to tremble. Something rises. And then harpies hiding above swoop down from the skies. The creatures immediately dive toward the group, who start shouting for everyone to get into position. It's an ambush. One of them claws downward, while Relch says these beasts have the nerve to attack a blessed man like Stefan. At the same time, Todd summons a blazing fire chain, lighting up the air, and the monsters go up in flames mid-flight. Meanwhile, sweet Scyllin, the femboy of the hour, is tossing out heals and buffs for the whole team. And Lepenhart, he's just standing off to the side, watching. He admits they're actually not that bad. Their swordplay is better than he expected. Of course, that's from a mage's perspective. As fighters, they're still pretty lousy. No wonder Gerard was always so proud of the techniques he taught. But, as always, there's a catch. One of the harpies breaks formation and charges toward the orcs who are hauling the supplies, only to catch a fist to the face so strong it vaporizes her in the air. Just like he expected, nobody's worried about defending those guys. According to Todd's account, this is where the last guy died. But this group's leader is Stefan, a member of the Altin family. Some of the soldiers, though, man, they're not doing so well. They're getting torn apart by the harpies. Lepenhart notices that Stefan isn't actually a bad person, but he clearly doesn't fight while protecting those beside him. And maybe that's what truly makes someone a bad person. Just then, Scyllin, the lovable femboy of the party, tells everyone to take cover in the trees. It's too dangerous out here. Our boy thinks at least someone in this group is decent. The harpies unleash another wave of attacks. Lepenhart doesn't even bother dodging. He just stands there, lets them hit, until one strike lands right in his eye. The poor guy wonders if he's even got any tears left after all that training. Not long after, Stefan calls out asking for a damage report if the mages and priests are all safe. One of the soldiers answers yes, and that's when our boy realizes they don't give a damn about him or the rest of the group. Right then, Stefan raises his arm and proudly declares that they've proven their strength and can now rest after such a glorious victory. Lepenhart takes the chance to walk over and talk to Todd, thanking him for the fire magic. It really saved everyone. He says he'd heard Todd was a mage from the Delphia Magic Tower, and he actually has a friend who studies there too. Todd asks who his friend is. Our boy replies his name is Lepenhart. Do you know him? Todd says, yeah, I know Lepenhart. I just didn't expect someone like you to be his friend. Such a big, tough guy. That kid was sweet, kind-hearted. And just like that, Lepenhart immediately clocks that this guy is seriously weird. Todd asks why he's bringing all this up, and our boy asks if he knows whether the kid started training. How's his body doing? Todd responds, oh, he's just like always. Sharp little nose, gemstone eyes, and skin soft as silk. And in that exact moment, Lepenhart knows. Is creeping thinking anything wholesome. He's even drooling for crying out loud. Thankfully, Scyllin walks up and asks if he's hurt. He says he's fine and tells her to check on the orcs instead. She goes to heal them, but the orcs say she doesn't need to worry. They're fine. She shouldn't waste her mana on people like them. One of the soldiers scoffs and asks why she's wasting magic on monsters. They'd recover on their own eventually. Lepenhart notes how the orcs are being treated like dogs, or honestly, worse than dogs. He knows plenty of dogs that are treated with more kindness. Just then, Stefan calls him, hey, guide, let's move. Our boy's fuming inside, but forces a dumb smile and leads the way. A few hours pass. The soldiers from the army are looking wrecked. Apparently, they ran into a pack of wolves, over 20 ogres, and a whole horde of monsters. They're wondering why this mountain is so full of threats. But of course, it's because Lepenhart is leading them in a straight line, cutting directly through danger instead of avoiding it. He may look like a soldier, but he's a mage, and a mage is all about efficiency. There's no way he's going to put himself in more danger just to make things faster for this bunch. Stefan's completely wiped out and mutters that now he understands why Sir Claude died here. But just then, his expression changes. They finally found the dungeon. He asks if this is the place. Todd nods. Absolutely. The ancient ruins of Fulton. The group pushes forward and stops in front of a massive door. Todd opens it, checks the entrance, and says it looks safe. They can move forward. Stefan rallies the group, telling everyone to get ready. The time has come. They're going in. Lepenhart says he'll wait outside, but Stefan waves him off, saying his job's done. He can leave. Our boy protests. Come on. This forest is crawling with monsters. I'll die out here. Stefan shrugs. Well, you found the place. We'll send someone to help you back later. Which only pisses Lepenhart off even more. So what? If they hadn't found the place, they'd have just abandoned him. Then Stefan turns to his team and gives a motivational speech saying a great knight rests behind those doors, and today they would honor his legacy. Everyone charges ahead, smiling like heroes, while Lepenhart just tells them good luck. The door shuts behind them, and that's when his plan begins. This ruin is full of monsters and wandering spirits, but in the past it used to be a military base. It might have looked ordinary, but the Silver Era's technology was incredibly advanced. That's exactly why this place is so valuable. Walking through the halls, Lepenhart murmurs that it's been a long time since he last came here. In his previous life, he and Ceres had walked these same paths. The girl, looking all stunning, says she hears a fairy through the walls. If there's a voice calling out from beyond, it means there's a hidden gate, and yep, she's the one who found the treasure room. Suddenly, a mosaic lights up on screen. What the hell did they get up to inside that dungeon's treasure vault? Man, Lepenhart's old life really was better. He's looking at the carvings on the wall, saying it's a code written in Libra script with reverse sequences of water and earth symbols. He's trying hard to decode it, but man, this brain of his now, it's definitely not what it used to be. Still, After a while, the mechanism clicks open. He tosses his coat on the floor, saying he's not about to ruin something that cost 10 silver coins, no way. Now shirtless, ripped out of his mind, he announces it's time to test what this body is really capable of. But just then, he hears screaming. He knows the shouts are coming from the other side, but come on, the treasure is right there. Why go back? Then he remembers, when he came here with Cirrus, she used her magic to locate the items and they got out safely. But this group he brought, they're heading through another area and probably triggered some trap or something. It's gotta be chaos. One soldier's already down, stabbed right through the neck. Sir Thomas, Stefan screams, but the man's already gone. Then in the back of the cavern, he sees it. What is that? A scythe glints from the dark and a demon steps out from the stone wall. And it's not alone. There are 3 of them. Stefan immediately realizes there's no way they're winning this. No human can handle something like that. Meanwhile, Selene is casting healing spells over the wounded soldiers. They're all thanking him, saying they're alive because of him. Almost called him her. Let's be honest. Sterling mutters that it was that trap that really wrecked them, and thanks Todd for saving them all. But Todd says he only protected them from the fall. The real danger is what lies ahead. Up the stairs, the soldiers are being launched like dolls. The demons are closing in fast. Everyone's panicking, screaming, and running. Sillin holds his ground, casting buffs and radiant blessings across the whole room. He summons a cursed-looking scepter, flooding everyone with courage and energy. The group fills up with light and resolve from Sillin's power, while Todd in the background is wondering, where the hell is this guy getting that much holy energy? Still, off they go. Everyone rushes in, fully hyped, even Todd. And strangely, he's pulling weird faces and tossing swords like he's doing stage tricks. Relchia, meanwhile, charges at one of the monsters. Or, at least she tries. She gets drop-kicked in the back, slammed in the gut, and launched into a wall. Barely conscious, she says she hopes she was able to help Master Stefan. At least the guy's not a coward. He tells her she did great, and that from now on, she can count on him. Say what you will, he's kind of a bastard, but at least he can fight. He delivers a clean strike and finishes off the demon. Everyone's stunned, saying they really can rely on the great warrior Stefan. He tells them all to focus. This is the exact spot where Sir Claude met his end. But right then, a fiery explosion bursts from above and stones rain down from the ceiling. Things just escalated fast. From the flames, another demonic beast appears. This time, a flaming version. The creature charges in, launching soldiers left and right. People are yelling to fall back, and the entire group starts fleeing. You'd think Stefan would panic, but nope. He growls, "No way in hell I'm going out like this." Gripping his sword, he swears he won't let that monster bring everyone to ruin. He carries the name of House Altian and the title of Resolute. He charges in and fires a powerful blade strike. It looks like it cut through the thing, but in reality, wham, the demon backhands him across the face and he goes spinning through the air. He hits the ground like a sack of trash and blacks out. At least Selene is there, his hands glowing bright with holy magic, shouting for Stefan to wake up. Or actually, nope. Selene straight up blasted the boss demon with holy power, whacked him on the head with a massive staff. The problem? The creature didn't die. It slowly turned and locked eyes with him. And now Selene is straight up shaking in his boots, man. The demon comes charging. Poor Selene squeezes his eyes shut, like, dude, you better try to dodge or something. But suddenly, the demon gets knocked back, flying through the air. Selene opens his eyes, and there he is, the absolute unit, the hero of the hour. He's here to save the waifu of the day. Well, when there's no woman around, you save the femboy, right? Lepenhart's just standing there like a boss, casually wondering if that monster really died from just one punch. In his past life, he'd have had to summon a huge magic circle for something like that. Now it all makes sense why Tezzeret decked him in the head during that fight. Looking around behind him, he sees the state of the knights, wrecked every last one of them. But then, from the same place the demons came out, a swarm of undead starts pouring in. Selene and Todd are frozen, eyes wide, whispering, "Who the hell is this guy?" Meanwhile, Lepenhart walks forward, Elfbro cradled in his arms, just casually punching monsters out of the way. Yeah, his fetish has been exposed at this point. Later, Stefan wakes up, looking half-broken, and Edward, "Yeah, not Gerard. Turns out you were right, and they're not the same person," asks if he's okay. Seeing all the monsters lying dead, Stefan asks what the hell happened. Someone must have filled him in because now he's shaken, confused, and staring at the huge dude who wiped everything out. He walks over to Lepenhart and apologizes, saying he didn't recognize such a noble warrior and asks for his name. Our boy almost says Lepenhart, but realizes Todd would recognize it immediately, so instead he says his name is Lepen. Edward's scratching his head. He's never heard of that name. If this guy were a noble or knight of repute, surely he'd know. Stefan asks what noble house he's from. Lepen replies, none. And now Stefan is even more pissed. To him, it made some sense if the guy was a noble who trained his whole life with endless resources. But if he's just a random dude and still this powerful, that's humiliating. So Stefan mutters something like, "All right, I see how it is. You showed up at the end and took care of what was left." At least he adds bitterly, "A little skill I have was useful for something." Lepenhart just brushes him off, saying that punch clearly messed with his memory. But hey, at least now he's seen just how useless he really is. Of course, Stefan loses it, yelling that he better show some respect to House Altien. Edward's panicking, telling Stefan to calm down. Don't pick a fight with him, man. He tries to smooth things over, saying Lepin probably doesn't know noble etiquette. He's just a commoner after all. Stefan takes a breath, calms himself, and says fine. But then he asks, who trained him? Leppenhart just shrugs. Little here, little there. Yeah, no way is he admitting he trained under Gerard. That guy's famous in the whole region. Stefan rumbles that it's almost impossible for someone to be this strong without proper training or a real master. But Leppenhart shuts it down. How about you stop interrogating me and go check on your injured people? Edward's been silently observing all this. He notices how comfortable this guy is bossing around anyone. He clearly carries himself like someone with status. At the very least, he must be used to commanding people. Maybe it's arrogance, or maybe he's royalty from some other country. While Leppenhart is pointing at the wounded, telling Stefan to do his damn job, Edward just keeps watching. This guy wasn't just confident, he didn't even care about age gaps or rank. He had to come from power. That's when Sillin walks up and merely breaks his neck, twisting around to look at him. Wait, your name is Rui Leppen? How tall are you? Leppenhart replies, 6'3". Sillin lights up like a Christmas tree. Back off, Sillin, my dude. He likes elf girls. Still sparkly-eyed, Sillin asks, how do I get a body like yours? Leppenhart sighs and says, just lifted a lot of heavy stuff. That's it. The little bastard just wouldn't stop glowing, saying that truly no knight ever shares their secrets. Somehow, Leppenhart already knew that this boy had lost his family when he was still a child and had been taken in by one of those orphanage orders or something along those lines. Judging by that cute little face of his, he probably got bullied a lot by the other kids. Maybe that's why he longs for what he doesn't have, a rugged appearance and a strong, powerful body. The issue is, well, it's pretty clear he didn't grow much, didn't develop any muscle, and his voice still sounds pretty feminine. And strangely enough, the more he trained his body, the more his secret energy seemed to grow. He stands there staring at our boy and murmuring, he's so tall and handsome. And of course, our guy is already trying to disappear into the shadows. Poor Leppenhart awkwardly says they'll talk later, but the guy just doesn't leave him alone. Then he says he's going to check the way out, and obviously Stefan jumps on that, saying he'll go too. He asks if it's okay, and Leppenhart shrugs, saying he can do what he wants. While they're walking, Stefan is silently fuming. He can't accept that someone like him was the one who had to save him. That guy was an arrogant bastard, and the moment they ran into more demons, he was planning to humiliate him, make him fall to his knees and beg. Well, that was the plan right up until he got smacked in the neck and passed out. Leppenhart looks at him and says calmly, take a nap, will you? At the same time, a few creatures sneak up from behind, jaws open to bite. Leppenhart casually punches them aside as he strolls through the corridor, heads over to a door, and starts searching a shelf, wondering where the gold coins and valuables are. One especially useful item he finds is a magic sack. Anything placed inside it becomes 10 times lighter than normal. Leppenhart also knows that somewhere nearby is the sapphire backflow dagger of magical power, along with a bunch of other great stuff. A little later, Stefan starts waking up, groaning and asking what just happened. Our boy walks up and says, some bastards knocked you out, man. But don't worry, if that happens again, I'll handle it. Stefan, still wobbling, mutters a weak thanks. Leppenhart replies, count on me. I'm probably gonna knock you out again anyway. Yeah. Next second, the guy's flat on the floor again with 3 lumps on his head. He gets up, rubbing his scalp, wondering what's going on. He's sure his guard is always up, so how does he keep getting knocked out so suddenly? A bit later, the group is on the move again, and Sillin looks at Leppenhart and asks, are you part of the royal family? Our boy says no, he's just a regular person. But Sillin looks puzzled. I mean, this guy's extremely powerful, knowledgeable, and the way he speaks, it's like he sees himself above everyone else. That's not normal for someone from a humble background. Leppenhart realizes, yeah, for someone who's supposed to be 22, maybe he has been acting a bit too high and mighty with everyone. Might be a good idea to tone it down a little. Later on, they reach a large door, and man, I thought they were heading for the exit after all that chaos, but no. They go and open the room of what seems to be the boss known as Grelbias. Leppenhart stands there, confused, wondering what the hell this thing is doing here. He doesn't remember seeing anything like it in his past life. Stefan's already bracing himself, clearly afraid of getting another surprise hit to the head. He tells everyone to focus. The creature lets out a terrifying roar, and Leppenhart immediately says they should retreat. With the strength this team has, they have no chance of winning. But one of the soldiers behind Stefan points at the demon's hand and tells him to look at the sword. It's the legendary blade of Altien, the one that's supposed to belong to Stefan's family. Edward, though, says, forget it, man. There's no way we can beat that demon. It's way too dangerous. Better to fall back, gather a new party, and come back with reinforcements if they want any chance at all. But Stefan, man, the guy was practically eager to be rescued again, said, no way. He'd rather die right there than retreat. He raised his sword, ordered everyone else to do the same, and shouted that they were going to charge. Leppenhart, standing off the side, just thought to himself, this guy is a real idiot. It looked like those dimensional distortions or the so-called dungeons from the Silver Age, were able to maintain themselves independently. Somehow, that creature had been absorbed by the dungeon's system due to some kind of broken mechanism. In other words, it was a being that fed off the dungeon itself, a type known as a guardian. And the issue is, once a creature gets fused with a dungeon, it becomes much stronger than it was before. On top of that, this must have been the thing that killed that guy in the past, meaning it's definitely the most powerful entity in there. Still, Stefan's hyping up the group, saying the monster's chained down, that they can take it down easily. At that point, Lepenhart turns to Edward and asks, "Dude, you guys are actually gonna fight that thing? You don't stand a chance. Everyone's going to die." But the bastard just turns back and says he appreciates the warning, but he's just a vagabond who doesn't understand what honor means. There are things in this world worth risking your life for. And then he charges in with his sword held high. Meanwhile, our boy is just standing there, wondering, why is he even helping these knights? You should just let them all die. Our dear boy Sillin is off to the side, praying for the goddess's blessing. All the soldiers, buffed up, go charging in, until one of them gets slammed in the chest and launched across the room. Lepenhart just shakes his head. Yeah, he knew this was going to happen. Another one goes flying, while the creature spins its blade and sends everyone scattering. Now our guy's already figured out what kind of man Stefan is. No matter how much you try to talk sense into him, he's going to keep pushing forward. Edward, on the other hand, seemed like someone who might be a little more reasonable. Maybe after taking a few hits, he'd get the message. He was jumping around, slashing here and dodging there, but to Lepenhart, it was like watching a bee trying to sting a human. At most, it might leave a scratch. Sillin was still at it, chanting his holy fire spells, spitting flames around the skeletal demon. The guy even struck a JoJo pose and shouted something like, "Burn in sacred flame." He launched 3 attacks in a row. At the same time, the elf girl went in slashing from above, and even Stefan pulled off a solid move. Lepenhart had to admit she was skilled. She was better than Edward and probably only second to Stefan. Watching Todd hurl spells around, he started wondering if maybe they were underestimating the guy. Maybe they could pull this off. Todd cast a tornado. The chains holding the beast started to break. But then, it started speaking in some bizarre, incomprehensible language. And yeah, of course, that was the signal for Phase 2. Everyone got blown back. Lepenhart's expression changed right away. The first soldier was instantly Isaac'd, and several others were slashed down or tossed aside. But man, give Stefan credit. The guy had guts. He went in again trying to flank the monster, and took a hit straight to the gut that sent him flying hard. Edward shouted his name, but Stefan just stood back up, bloody and barely standing, and said, "I'm fine. Trust me." They charged again. Now Elsia, she came in with a whirlwind of kicks and slashes, aiming straight down on the monster. But of course, she took a hit from the side and got scorched by a blast of fire along with everyone else. From a distance, Sillin watched the flames barreling toward them. But chill, Chad saved the waifu just in time, pulled her out of the way. He even apologized, saying he only didn't react faster because he got distracted. But the real problem now, he was left standing alone in a one-on-one against that beast. That's when he started activating his aura, saying he was curious. He wanted to know what this body, the one that trained for over 10 years, was really capable of. If he were still just a mage, he'd never take a risk like this, not with his life on the line. But now, man, now he was a fighter. He only felt truly alive when facing an enemy where victory wasn't guaranteed. So he charged forward, saying that if his master were here to see this, he'd be proud. He fired off a focused explosion right off the bat, but the creature retaliated fast and Lepenhart had to dodge. Still took a small slice to the shoulder. Metal weapons might have done nothing but magic, that still worked on him. In the blink of an eye, he was already behind the beast, but the monster pulled a reverse kick out of nowhere and launched him straight into the wall. Sillin screamed in panic, but Lepen just strolled out of the smoke like nothing happened, cracking his neck with a pop. Our dear femboy was completely terrified man. The toughness of this guy's body was unreal. Lepenhart thought, if I hadn't held back just now, I probably could have found an opening to counter. This fight had turned into a pure test of reflexes, just like it used to be with Gerard. He had no clue what that monster's roar meant, but he welcomed it. Bring it on. The two clashed in a brutal back and forth while Stefan just stood there in shock, wondering what that aura even was. How could a man with no title or bloodline manifest an aura, something he, a noble, hadn't even achieved yet? Watching the exchange, he could barely process what he was seeing. Who the hell is this man? And where did he come from? Meanwhile, our boy was trading fists with the creature like it was a boxing match. He dodged another attack and said, "These moves are starting to get too predictable, way too simple now." He landed another clean hit on the creature's arm, and it looked like it might have ripped the thing off completely. But the problem with dungeon guardians is that they don't die, no matter how badly you beat them up. That's because the dungeon itself keeps feeding them energy and healing them. The beast prepped another explosion, but Lepenhart dodged again. He grabbed its arm, landed a kick to the face, followed by a flurry of punches. While they were trading blows like that, all the soldiers were just standing there, watching in disbelief. Lepenhart realized he was probably drawing a little more attention than he wanted. He figured it'd be better to just use the Horn of Calamity and end it already, but the risk of collapsing the entire dungeon and killing everyone was still too high. From the back, Todd shouted, Lepin, use a sword, man. We'll buff it with holy energy and you can finish this thing. But our boy just yelled back, I don't know how to channel aura into a sword, you moron. All I know is how to punch with it. That's it. Then Sillin called out and asked if his body was tough enough to take a hit. Lepinhart said, yeah, it's one of the sturdiest around. So Sillin replied, all right then, you're getting Philinence's blessing. Whether our boy liked it or not, he clenched his jaw, grabbed the boss by the arms, and slammed it into the ceiling, man. What that little bastard did was use a spell that normally hardens metal, but cast it on Lepinhart's body. Despite having that soft, adorable face, the guy had a very unique strategy. Now Lepinhart, all stiff but reinforced, pushed forward again, launched a kick to the boss's chin, followed by a knee strike and another punch. It was hard to believe the creature was still alive. The monster floated up in midair, then came the pink laser, and finally, the bastard died. Praise the gods. Our boy just stood there, all cool and collected, while Sillin was practically glowing with hearts in his eyes, throwing up rock and roll signs like a fan at a concert. The symbol above them started to fade. The dungeon was done. All busted up, Stefan walked over and asked, are you really Lepin? He wanted to know why Lepinhart had been hiding all that strength, and if he really thought the rest of them were idiots. He admitted he was powerful, but said he wouldn't be forgiven for trampling on the honor of the knights. He must have laughed at all of them while they struggled, he claimed. But Lepinhart calmly asked, when did I ever laugh at anyone? Truth is, he wouldn't bother laughing, because he didn't care about any of them, not even a little bit. He turned to walk away, saying nothing, but Stefan was dying to be humbled again. He lunged to attack, swinging his sword, but our boy just bent down to pick up a sword from the ground, and the idiot ended up slicing the air and tumbling across the floor like a fool. All twisted up and red in the face, Stefan asked if he dodged on purpose, but Lepinhart just picked up the sword and told him to take the damn thing already. Wasn't that what he came here for in the first place? Edward, trying to lighten the mood, said he should admire the boy for defeating the boss and still showing no greed, a true champion. But in reality, Lepinhart already knew that sword wasn't anything special compared to the ones from the old days. And besides, he didn't even use swords. So whatever, he just walked off with everyone else while Stefan was practically bursting with rage. Then the scene shifted to the village of Kurol, where Sillin was healing a baby. Our boy was about to leave when he noticed Sillin giving away every single gold coin he earned from the mission to the poor in town. Meanwhile, on the road back home, Stefan turned to Edward and said he wanted to know who the hell that guy Lepin really was. Edward answered calmly that he figured he'd ask something like that. The kid definitely caught a lot of attention, and yet Stefan muttered to himself, saying it just couldn't be possible for that guy to be better than him. Oh my dude, has reality still not slapped you in the face yet? Cut to our main guy climbing through the mountains, thinking it's finally time to find Cyrus, a bronze elf girl he just can't get out of his head. The only issue is some bastards following him. Stillin walks up and says, have you ever heard of the goddess of blessings who guides the faithful? I was thinking of returning to the order, but I've decided to walk the pilgrim's path instead. And if possible, I want to travel with the strongest man I've ever met. Lepinhart's thinking, yeah, I've seen that weird sparkle in someone's eyes before, rosy cheeks and all. This is starting to feel a little too familiar. In every lifetime, there's always someone like this trailing after him. At least the guy was a priest, right? And you really couldn't ask for a better healer than that nearby. Not to mention, Cyrus could be hurt or sick, so bringing him along wasn't a bad idea. So he just told the guy, do whatever you want, you can come. Of course, Sisselin's already right up next to him like, what's the best workout? To get shredded abs? Should I focus on my upper core or lower abs? Our boy just shrugged and said, punch rocks, heat rocks. It's all about rocks. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the Empire, in a luxurious mansion, someone asked if they trained that thing. A guide knelt down, apologizing to the young master Verit, saying they'd done everything they could. But Verit shouted, an elf should be loyal to her master. She's supposed to give everything, her body and her heart. No wonder she was so cheap, even though she's an elf. And yep, we can already guess, that's Cyrus. She calmly explained that she was born with that skin tone. But Verit just snapped and told them to bring him something decent, even if it cost a fortune. That insolent thing had to be removed from his house. Man, in Elvenheim, that was already the third time Cyrus had been returned after being bought. And guess who's pulling up to the rescue? Yep, the main man himself. Now the kingdom of Chetan was a major trading region up in the northern part of the continent. Their prosperity came from being surrounded by several different nations, the trade routes flowing like rivers, always busy, always thriving. At that moment, they were heading to the capital of Jeplin. The streets were packed and Sillin commented, no wonder, this is the central trading point of the capital. Lepinhart said, this whole place was founded by merchants, man. So from the very beginning, everything's revolved around money. But Sillin was already trailing behind like, can you walk slower? Stop showing off those long legs. That's when they spotted it, your classic scene. A rich guy beating on a poor one. The pig of the moment was named Tarek, and he was yelling, who gave a beggar like you the right to insult all these merchants? You'll learn your place real quick. And yeah, after the beating, he threw 30 gold coins on the ground, one for each hit. I mean, I've seen worse nobles. The ones I know, they beat people and don't give any coins. At least this guy paid for the pain. After 10 years of training, our boy earned 30 silver coins. Meanwhile, the guy got beat up for 10 seconds, walked away with 30 gold coins, and is still about to get healed by Silen. I'd say that was worth it. And that bastard, look at him. Just because I mentioned it, he's over there smiling, the cheeky punk. Stillen's annoying that the scumbag is happy, and Leppenhart points out, look, kid, in this place, everything revolves around money. Our little femboy, however, says that he's traveled all over the world and never imagined there'd be a place like this. Now he wants to know what exactly our protagonist came here for. Our guy answers that he came to buy something. Stillen asks, buy what? And with a jaw as sharp as a mountain edge, he says he came to buy an elf. Strangely, Stillen immediately covers himself like, dude, what were you thinking? That he was going to jump you in the middle of the night? Muttering that Leppenhart really is no different from other men. Leppenhart replies, I know what you're thinking, kid, but it's not what you're thinking. But before he can explain anything, the boy is already storming off. On the way, though, he mutters that damn Stillen talks like he's not even a man. The scene then goes to this guy Tarek, right, bro, at his house saying, those wretches keep complaining that I have money and take advantage of them. If having money is so great, why did they earn it? The elf looks and says, you're right, master, it makes sense. They're all cozying up to the chubby guy when suddenly he looks to the side, sees Verret, and says they haven't seen each other in a while. As far as he heard, Verret had bought a killer elf recently, right? So what happened? Verret is all trembling, asking himself, why did I have to run into this bastard here of all places? He then says, I returned that damn thing a few weeks ago because she wasn't the most obedient. Right then the fat guy bursts out laughing, asking if he really couldn't tame an elf that was already a slave. No wonder the big shot merchants were starving with an incompetent like him around. Man, what a roast. Verret tries to explain, right, that apparently she had already been returned countless times and that's why she was cheap. And the chubby guy is thinking, if I can manage to buy that little slave and tame her, that bastard will see who's the best. The scene then shifts to another part of the city, where Leppenhart is looking down and asking what he thinks he's doing. Stillen is there on the ground row, putting in effort, saying he's exercising while our boy is just thinking that the poor guy really was skinny man. He then tells him not to push himself so hard, right? He'd end up with sore muscles for the rest of the day. To which Stillen replies that it's all good, it won't affect his trip. Suddenly, when our boy looks again, he's already healed, all cute, saying that he can shake off healing spells, just like that. Why does the artist spend more time drawing Stillen than the elves? And our boy gets it now, why the bastard can't gain any muscle. The principle of healing magic was pretty similar to time reversal and muscles needed right to develop after being destroyed. But if you use holy power on them, it's like you go back to when, you hadn't trained yet. The boy was the dumbest guy he ever met. What's the idea of doing all that painful training only to cancel it out like that? Now it's clear why the fool has been wasting time for 5 years. Then he asks, right, if that long hair doesn't get in the way when he's training. To which Silence says it grows back really fast even when he cuts it. By then our boy is already leaving, saying they're going now to buy a slave, especially since he sold the artifacts. Obviously at the slave market there are all kinds, and without a doubt the most coveted and expensive ones were the elves. Their appearance lined up with human tastes, which made them, much more interesting than the others. A killer elf could cost over 800 gold coins, a regular woman 400, a little girl 100, and a little boy 30, an orc gladiator 10 coins, an orc slave 5 coins, and an orc baby 4 to 5 coins. Meanwhile, male elves, nobody wanted them even for free, bro. Seems like as soon as you bought them, they'd take their own lives. The guys have pride, man. No way they're gonna live as slaves. Besides that, there's the fact that elves live 4 times longer than humans. So if you buy one, you basically got them for life. Not that I'm interested, but really, in terms of cost-benefit, yeah, it makes sense. Leppenhart, though, says you gotta be smart too. There's the story of some dumb merchant who bought an elf baby and died bottle feeding it, because the thing never matured. And one thing that's annoying is that this place is called Elvenheim, just like the sacred land of the elves. Stillen is all cute saying that this place takes really good care of the elves, they looked healthy. But Leppenhart says it doesn't matter. In the end, they were still slaves and definitely not smiling about it. Strangely, Stillen says that they must be happier there, since they can live alongside humans, not worrying about food, war, and a peaceful life. Leppen knows, right bro? That's how all humans think things are. Besides, no matter how strong you are, it was hard to change people's perception, since they only respect fear. In this life, he wants to build a new empire, but it has to be different from the past life. It's not going to be a dark empire or ruled by a demon king, but a nation for all races. Oh my boy, wasn't that exactly what you did, you damn bastard? At that moment, a guy comes out from behind the curtains and apologizes for the delay. The most beautiful killer elves had arrived. The sly ones all come in seductively, asking what he wants and saying they'll do whatever he wants. While Stillen covers his eyes all shy, our boy is, just hunting for Cirrus. At the same time, he's disappointed because it seems that those in front of them are descendants of spirit fairies, and it's sad to see them lowered to that level. Then he asks if by any chance he doesn't have a dark-skinned killer elf. The guy comments, "Damn, you got a peculiar preference. It'll be hard to find one like that. But come with me, we got one for even crazier tastes. Walking down the corridors, our boy sees some elves doing weird stuff, right, man? When you've got 500 years to live, you can hang out by the fountain dancing. The guy is talking about everything the elves do, how well they work, the fruits they harvest, the food they make. But Lepenhard just tells him to shut up and lead already. The poor guy gets startled, coughs a little, and apologizes. Then he approaches a door and asks to see number 148. Man, at the same time, the elves are also training combat there all day long, bro. My god, the elves could just take over that whole place already, right? They're doing everything anyway. Then the guy says that the elf he's looking for is there. Ah, our boy gets all teary-eyed, man. Look at her there, fighting for her life with a piece of papyrus in hand. My girl, that's not a very good sword. And here comes a flashback, turning to the past. Lepenhart teaching her things, explaining that she can't mix this with that, showing a potion. Boom, the whole place explodes, right? Clearly, he wasn't the brightest either. She says he has to make up his mind. He said the same thing yesterday and the result was the same. While he's all shy and twisted up, she strokes him and asks how a man so old can be so adorable. Then he asks when she's going to stop calling him Lord, right? She could just call him Lepen. But she answers that no, she'd never do something like that. And we're not going to find out why, bro. We see our boy in front of the castle, the whole place being attacked. Behind him are the 4 warriors, man. One of them says farewell to his majesty, and Lepenhart asks why they all have such dead faces. He wasn't a dead man yet, even though the entire continent had united and gathered all their forces to attack them. In front of them was all the military power they had, and they wonder what the world will be like after this war. Most likely, the entire nation would be ruined with this single attack. One of them says this just proves how intolerable their existence had become. What he wants to know is if Lepen really can't handle them. Our boy says they all have a chance to escape, since he's staying in Garek. He just wanted to apologize to Alport. As an entity, he did everything for them, but in the end, he failed. The dwarf says it wasn't just any support. This was the result of a prophecy, which said that the one who keeps an elf by his side is followed by the orc guide and crosses the abyss of Tamian would emerge as the pillar of Hokro. They were meant to follow him. This guy was the one who would change fate and bring salvation. Lepen says that he never understood. He had destroyed half of the dwarves' temple, and even so, they were worshipping him like he was a savior. May Alport's blessing be with all of you until the next time we meet. At that, they turn around and Cyrus says she'll be waiting for him. But Lepen responds that you can never know what fate holds. If something were to happen to him, she should find someone else. She cuts in and says that no matter what happens, she'll wait for him. He goes to say something, but she interrupts again and says it doesn't matter. Look at that. They kissed in the middle of a war, how romantic. But now in the present, right, bro, the girl's all skinny. And the vendor apologizes, saying he's even ashamed to show off someone like that. It was a defective product that had already been returned 3 times because she was impossible to tame. She was skilled. The problem is that her personality took away all the value. So you never get some use out of her, they're leaving her there in the middle of training to kind of help everyone else improve. And he wants to know if the boy is still interested in buying that. Lepen says yes, and the vendor gets excited, thinking that in this world, you never know what kind of fetish each nutcase has. And so he says it would cost 300 gold coins. Sylvan comments that it's pretty cheap, huh? To which the guy says yeah, because it's not a very good product. Full of defects. He's desperate to get rid of her. The negotiation was quick, and Cyrus, already says he must be her new master. All skinny, the girl, where's all her health gone? Our boy just looks and thinks that really, her life hasn't been easy. He takes off his coat, and the guy asks if he needs a priest. Our boy says no, right, and says Sylvan will take care of it. He puts the coat on her, asks if she has a name, and she says no. He offers the name Cyrus, and she says that's fine. From her answer, he questions, you didn't like the name, did you? And she just says that it's fine. She was now called Cyrus and would keep that in mind. Our boy tightens the coat and says, if that's the case, then from now on you're Cyrus Valencia. Cyrus says, a slave doesn't need a last name, right? Is that yours, by any chance? He just answers that no, that was the last name she should have, and that's that. He introduces himself as Lepenhart, right, and introduces Sylvan too, who's a priest. All sweet, she says she understood. Sometime later, the vendor is there all nervous, wanting to know if he really wants number 148. It was a problem because she'd already been sold. Obviously, it's that chubby Tarek, right, angry, wanting to know if that Dan Verrett figured out his plan and came to buy her. The vendor says no, it was some young guy he'd never even seen around here. He paid in cash, so he, didn't even ask for info or anything. Tarek says it's rare to have someone unknown in this city with enough money to buy a slave like that out of nowhere. To which the vendor says, that it was a defective product, so it was a bit cheaper. The guy wants to know what the bastard looked like, and the vendor says, he's real easy to spot. Super tall, broad shoulders, jacked. No way to miss him. And at that moment, he's already seeing Cyrus all dressed up, right, you rascal. He already gave her an outfit. Says it's not perfect, right, but tells her to wear that for now, and later they'll get something better. On the streets, he asks if she's hungry, and she tells him to do whatever he wants. He tells her, he'll try to think of me like I'm your owner, which only makes her ask if he's planning to return her. Awkwardly, he says that's not what he's talking about. While Cyrus is trying to figure out what this guy's deal is, He gave her his coat, bought clothes, and now is treating her like she were a human woman. Our boy says, "I'm going to treat you like a travel companion," which makes Cirrus think she finally figured out what his fetish is. A pervert obsessed with adventure stories, right? She's thinking he's kinda planning to take her into a cave and do something crazy. And apparently, he wants her to pretend she's a knight by his side or something like that. So she says that's fine, she'll call him Lord Leppenheart. Next scene, she's already all chubby, stuffing herself with lobster. That wretch. I've never eaten lobster in my life. I just want to try it, just to know what it tastes like. Our boy explains that this Gladani's Grace is the most famous restaurant in Jeplin. They worship the goddess of abundance, so everything there is well served. Scylla comments, right, that if it's the goddess of abundance, everything should be free. To which our boy says that Scylla says that, but his team also makes money off of healing. The femboy tries to defend himself, but our boy just says that he was raking in tons of gold coins even if he gave them away afterward. Then the two notice that Cyrus was devouring the dish. Right away, she calms herself down, to pretend like she's chill, while Leppin wonders if she doesn't like the place. As far as he remembers, they used to come there all the time to celebrate. Their relationship, this time, was different. In the past life, he found her as his savior, but in this one, he was a buyer. Obviously, the way she saw him was different, but it was okay. One day she'd understand his intentions. What they had for now was more than enough. In a weapon shop, the guy says that what he has there can't be found anywhere else, and Leppin tells Cirrus she can choose whatever she wants. Interesting. She picks out a little sword and he asks, right, if it isn't better than a scimitar, which obviously makes her mad. How the hell did that bastard know something like that? While Scylla thinks it must be some kind of talent of our girl, fighter stuff, just by looking at someone, you can already tell what they like. Scylla is all happy because he bought a mithril dagger. Leppin's like, why would a priest need something like that? In the middle of all this talk though, he notices someone was watching them. Then some guys in black clothes approach and say they'd like to have a little chat. Oh boy, it was going too easy, right bro? He just asks what they want. Then the guy says, a great buddy of mine wants to have that elf by his side. Leppin simply asks, so what? Then the guy stretches out a card and says he'll be extremely well rewarded, so he should sell her now. With that amount, he could buy another elf of the highest quality. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Leppin, of course, just replies that he's not interested. The guy says, friend, you don't know. You're not getting the situation. It's better to be well rewarded than not. But our boy bro stares him down and says he won't repeat it. He's not interested. The guy turns and says, all right then, seems like you're really attached to that elf. They leave and our boy finds it strange. Who do these guys think they are to come threaten him like that? Back at Tarek's house, the guy is going nuts, wanting to know how they came back empty-handed. The military guy tries to explain that the jacked weirdo wasn't accepting any amount of money, no matter how much he offered. The fat guy says just beat her up and steal the elf. Problem solved. A servant says he knows, but they have to wait for the right time to capture her. At that moment, there were too many eyes around. They could kidnap her later and then hand over some extra money to him, saying it was a sort of compensation for her having died. The fat bastard says the plan isn't bad and that he should take some guy named Lantis with him this time. Back at our boy's place, bro, he's still loaded with gold coins. The plan was to spend 2,000, but it seems like he ended up with more left over than expected. At the same time, it wasn't much, because his plan was to rebuild an entire empire. Maybe he should start investing instead of just carrying it around. He remembers that pretty soon a region called Provence is going to be hit by a food shortage. They have vast territory and are blessed by the goddess of agriculture, so they're not prepared for what's about to happen. Countless people are going to die of hunger and cannibalism will become something normal in that region. Investing in grain at this moment is the perfect move. And in the city, there are 3 merchant groups he could negotiate with: Rolfine, Charon, and Tavan. Rolfine, apparently, is the one from the guy who stole Cirrus. In between the 2 remaining options, he seems to prefer the Tavan group. That's the one whose symbol is in mind with a little thing on the forehead. And that guy scratching his head is the leader of the Tavans, known as Cybolt Tavan. He's kind of confused because the Rolfin guys are selling wheat at half the price, and that's kind of crashing everyone else in sales. That's when the boy opens the door and says there's an investor there, right, who's interested in them. The guy wants to refuse, saying he already has too many things to deal with, until the boy mentions the person is interested in investing 1,500 gold coins. Right away, our boy stands there with arms crossed, saying that that's all going into grain. The plan was to sell it to the Provence region next year during harvest season. The guy finds it a bit weird, right, and explains that the Provence region is extremely productive. Selling grain to them was like selling soap to orcs, man. It made no sense at all. Our boy comments that there are lots of orcs and they've gotten used to using soap, and man, they smell nice. The guy finds it odd. He tells him to just forget that, and then tells Cybolt to just accept it already. If it didn't work, he was the one losing money anyway, so there was nothing to worry about. The leader, though, says that he can't accept an investment like that, right? He had to reconsider, or else it'd be like burning money. Our boy stands up and says fine then. Since they don't want his money, he'll just go somewhere else. But then the guy asks him to wait and tries to explain that the Tovan merchants weren't in such a good spot at that moment. On the other hand, with that money he had, they'd definitely survive. So yeah, he kind of accepts. Lepenhart knows this guy was annoying to negotiate with in the past life and he hadn't changed. But he warns that the money is his and he'll spend it how he wants. They were to bring the paperwork. What if a single coin was used somewhere he didn't authorize? Things would get serious. The guy accepted, and in memory, Lepen says that he would need a favor. He wanted to take advantage of the information network they have to get intel on someone who's over at the Magic Tower. Obviously, right? It must be about the real Lepenhart, or in this case now Tesserin. Outside, Cirrus and Celine are there and she's practicing with the dagger, while remembering a high elf who said they were the protectors in the forest. All elves should live eternal life under the blessing of the world tree known as Elvenheim. The animals were their friends and the trees were what provided them with infinite food. Even though they'd ended up in meat because of the humans, the great empire of Eldia would one day rise again. She, as one of the heirs of the great fairies, should never forget. But man, that's what she heard until she saw the whole place in flames. Another elf said she was pretty, so she got a chance of being sold for a good price. She should hurry up and learn about loyalty and obedience to manage to get bought. But obviously, she was only beaten and got the worst food possible. Because of that, the other elves just laughed at her. She was resisting too much just because of her pure bloodline, but that was costing her a lot. Even so, Cyrus could only remember that all the adults she knew always carried a sword. That's why she also loved doing it. Whenever she used the blade, she remembered the proud image of her parents. The problem is that time passed and the memories faded. The only words she could still remember were her mother saying that she should never lose her pride. Celine is there, bro, clapping his hands, saying she's amazing and wanting to know how you do something like that. To which she replies, just train hard. Celine is obviously angry, saying that every damn fighter always thinks the same way. He throws a little punch in the air, saying that's how you do it. When suddenly, they hear a voice saying they finally found them. At the end of the hallway, someone orders the elf to come closer. It's that damn woman from before, saying the time has come for her to go to her true master. Yikes, man, and the whole crew is there. Bravely, Celine puts his hand on his hip and asks who the hell they are. But the guy says for them to just give up already. They were going to take care of everything. Celine insists, and the guy comes in swinging, bro, completely nuts. But Cyrus jumps in for the defense and slashes right across the first one's neck. The guys come at her, she spins around, stabs one, then another. Man, like 3 are already dead. The guys there trembling, wondering how a damn slave is acting like that. Why would someone who was just bought already be that strong? And Celine Man starts conjuring buffs right away until something almost hits him. He warns that no one's going to care if they get rid of some random pilgrim. Celine's pissed, but Cyrus tells him to calm down. Then she starts walking forward calmly, bro, and tells Celine not to worry. She'll handle it. The soldiers obviously aren't happy with her boldness. One of them says it's time for a certain Talcata to get to work. Oh man, here comes another slave. Huh, bro? Slave versus slave. And like in every story, the orc talks all rough. Talcata work now. Talcata take elf. Sorry, that is fate. And Cyrus immediately notices the guy was very skilled. The man gives the order and tells Talcata not to leave a single scratch. She moves to block the first strike, but he comes in with a curved blow, man, and hits her square on the shoulder. Even so, she seems to have managed to shift to the side. But she realized he was fast and strong. As she attacks, she regrets leaving the scimitar in the room. The bastard dodged, and she pulled off a beautiful capoeira move. While the leader's shouting, telling him to finish off that elf woman quickly. Talcata's angry now, knowing that if he drags this out, he's going to miss dinner. He charges again. The two face off. He comes down with an overhead slash, but Cyrus moves in. By the look on the orc's face, he seems to have messed up, and she slides under the blade while approaching beneath the attack. She locks eyes with him, and he realizes he screwed up, bro. As soon as the sword went off to the side, she smiled and slashed at his neck. Lucky for him, he had armor. The orc can't believe she ran toward the attack like that. Any normal person would be afraid of dying like that. Then Celine calls out to Cyrus and tells her to block the dagger's man, already starting to cast his buff. But the soldier says he won't let that happen and throws a dagger. Of course, Cyrus jumps in front and blocks it. But because of that, the fanboy's invocation ends, man. Too late for the fools. All got crushed. Or apparently not, because Celine says that this power only works on undead and dark beings, but at least they'll buy some time, so they better run. Cyrus grabs him by the collar, kicks a sword away, jumps, and climbs up the wall, man. The guys back there are obviously shouting orders to go after them, until one dude shows up and says it looks like they're struggling. He can't believe not even Talcata could capture that woman. Man, now the old guy arrives, looks like he's got 70 years of battlefield under his belt, saying he'll have to take care of it. As soon as the man takes the lead in a second, he jumps and vanishes. The soldiers left there shocked, thinking that the difference in power of an aura user really is enormous. And the bastard is there saying that it's been a while since he played hide and seek. In the rush, Celine says they have to go back to the room and grab their weapons. Cyrus is sure there will be more enemies there, but Celine says the only way they'll win is with their weapons. There was no way they'd be able to leave the city carrying a dagger, so they rush into the room, bro, grab the weapons, use a spell to hide their steps. But right then, the aura guy is walking around nearby. The name of the bastard is Lantis. He's the master of the sword. Because he has aura, he can sense any movement in a 30-meter radius. While he's destroying the door, he can't believe that that redhead was a high-level priestess. Some guy shows up and asks if Lord Lantis really lost track of the two, but he just tells him to shut up and orders the men to start hunting throughout the entire city. In the chaos, Cyrus wants to know if it wouldn't be better for them to flee to a more crowded area, to which Silence says that would only make things worse. Soon it would be announced the slave escaped and the whole area would become hostile. While running though, he's already thinking, now it's clear why pilgrims always die, man. On the other hand, a worst option was going back to that woman. My boy, girl, what did that girl do to you, my boy? He says he's never going back to that place with this skinny body, and that they have to find Lepin fast. So he casts a spell, asking the goddess to guide him to his destined path. The ability starts forming a path through the city, and a narration explains that this spell was actually created to bring couples together. Love might seem like coincidence, but when blessed by the goddess Philinance, it becomes destiny. Even Scylla is kind of confused, right, because it's working, but it's something meant for couples. Then Scylla starts praising and Cyrus praises back, yeah, the two saying they're pretty impressive for their age. Suddenly, they're kind of in an open field and Scylla explains that it was his ability that led them there. The problem is that right at that moment, that bastard Lantis shows up in front of the two. Right away, Cyrus tells him to step back because that definitely wasn't Lepinhart, and Lantis smiles, thanking them for the day's workout, but warns them that they better not think about running. And man, Cyrus charges in like a madwoman, thinking the worst thing would be to turn your back on an enemy like that. The attack looked like it would hit clean, but Lantis dodges in a second and says that for a slave elf, she was pretty talented. He's already behind her while Cyrus wonders, what kind of man was that? Stillen begins to activate his buffs, wondering why a swordsman of this caliber is involved in nonsense like this. He gives a whole speech and stacks like 5 or 6 buffs at once on the dagger. Looking at the dagger, Lantis is confused. To use that many buffs at once, he have to be at least at bishop level. And Scylla is celebrating, saying that even if it doesn't seem like it, he was one of the badasses from the Vasily region. Cyrus goes in swinging with her strikes, but even so, Lantis says it's not going to make much difference. In the moment, her blade breaks and the guy slashes at her. Yeah, bro. Scylla's celebration got cut short. The bastard in front of them was an aura user, and even Lantis got pissed, saying he can't believe he was forced to use aura on an elf like her. Scylla knew that didn't make sense. An aura user shouldn't be in a place like this. With that kind of power, he could be living comfortably anywhere in the world. Sending this guy to capture a slave was like asking a dragon to use its fire breath to cook soup. Overhearing the conversation, Scylla finds out that his name is Lantis, a man who was once a renowned knight of the Empire. Born from a noble lineage, he awakened his aura before the age of 40, but Lantis carried a secret no one spoke about. His cruelty, which began with elf slaves, eventually extended to human women in the capital. Eventually, it reached the nobility, and that's apparently where his fun ended. Scylla says that now he knows where the damn monster had been hiding. He couldn't believe an aura user was getting involved in something so dirty. He really was just as vile as the rumors said. Lantis responds that even though things are tough, he still has to make a living somehow. He fled to this place after being expelled from the kingdom of Tychon. The other soldier standing nearby is just thinking that for a merchant group, being able to afford someone strong like that was the biggest advantage. Lantis lives peacefully and does whatever he wants while they use the money, which they have no shortage of. Suddenly, Lantis points at Cylon and says he's going to seal his holy powers. He knew very well what happened when you let a high priest keep his mouth open. Cylon, bro, I don't even know what happened. Gets completely struck down and the guy is asking Lantis not to hurt the elf. Tarek would be furious. But Lantis just says they can always get priest to heal her, so it wouldn't be a big deal. Suddenly, he looks at Cylon and says he noticed that this priest had a very pleasant appearance. The soldier says it looks like the worst has happened. And Lantis is saying this experience will be quite unique. Man, the big old hand is coming in to grab, until someone slices it. I thought it was our boy arriving, but nope, it's Cylon, bro. Even Seal, he stood back up and said he wasn't gonna let them do whatever they wanted. The guy asks, how is someone with their tendons destroyed getting up? He was the most handsome, alive, fragile zombie he'd ever seen. Looks like they were going to have to cut off all 4 limbs to get him to stop moving. Right then, though, an explosion from behind, right man. The badass has arrived, saying he found the bastards and that they were going to pay for trying to take Cyrus. Man, he's coming in with swagger, bro. Walking straight, tossing off the coat. Lantis, as they're trying to figure out who this kid is. Clearly, he didn't just look tall. You could feel a mountain of aura surrounding his body. Then the guy nearby says that that's the guy who bought the elf. And Lantis asks what's with this nonsense of calling him just some random kid. Just by looking at him, his whole body was going on high alert. Lantis knew that if he couldn't see the guy's power, it meant he was an aura user too. But how could someone this young already have awakened aura? At most, he looked 20 or 30 years old. He goes to draw his sword, saying it's been a long time since he's seen someone truly strong. Lepin just replies that it's funny seeing him pretend to be a real knight. He was just a filthy old man and a pervert. Right away, Lantis charges in, bro. And of course, Lepinhart steps in for the brawl. While the guy's swinging his sword, Lepin is punching the blade man. The knight standing nearby can't understand a single thing that's happening. And bro, Our boy's 1.90 meters is looking like 5 meters. It's straight up attack on Titan out here. Lantis is all twisted up in pain, but the fight seemed fair. A soldier asks if they should help, but the other warns. Man, if we get involved in that, we'll just die for nothing. While the fight goes on, Selen is casting healing magic on Cyrus, who asks whether Lepenhart really was already a mana user. Lantis is still going at it, realizing that the bastard wasn't just someone who had mana. The bastard, on top of that, knew how to fight. No explanation made sense. Either he awakened aura as a teenager, or he was a 40-year-old man with a baby face. And then, bam, another punch from Lepenhart, who's mad bro, wondering why a dirty old creep like that had such sharp swordsmanship. From now on, he was going to punch anyone who said the path of the sword teaches good manners. Lantis backs off, crashes onto a pillar, and is trying to understand how the guy was blocking sword slashes with punches. Right then, he asks the boy if he was a student of Gerard, the King of the Fist. What the hell? This guy knows everything, man. Damn. Lepen doesn't say anything, and that bastard wants to know why someone as strong as him would care about a mere slave. Lepen, man, asks, what's this talk about a mere slave? The people they treated as slaves have thoughts and emotions too. He lands another punch while Lantis dodges, asking what kind of idiocy he's talking about. Lepen remembers that in his past life, people reacted the same way. The belief that all other races were beneath humans was deeply rooted in the world. They could see other kinds of beings cry, laugh, or suffer, and still think those emotions mattered less than humans. Lantis defends himself by saying humans were the chosen leaders. It was only natural that all the other races would serve them as slaves. Lepen says he only thinks like that because humans are the race currently ruling the world. His view would be different if another race controlled everything and he were the one in chains. When those in power enslaved the orcs, the humans celebrated. When the dwarves were enslaved again, they celebrated. Same thing with the elves. But all that celebration was simply because each time it was the humans doing the celebrating, obviously. Lantis asks if he's lost his mind to actually believe elves were equal to humans. Lepen's punch hits the ground and he warns. Cyrus is not a slave. Once again, that bastard Lantis dodges. While howling, Lepen is thinking that a system like this is doomed to fail. Humans were fools to think this cycle didn't need to be broken, or that their way of thinking didn't need to change. But it was also true that, at this rate, humans would forever live in fear, and eventually, the chains would be broken, and they would become the slaves. And that's why he knows that all of this has to change. And since it wasn't going to happen naturally, he forced it to happen. Finally, a punch lands on that bastard Lantis, who gets smashed into the wall. The man is sent flying and explodes on the other side of the building. And Lepen says, no one better have the nerve to call Cyrus a slave. It was going to change this world for her, bro. And Cyrus is there wondering if he's right in the head. But remembering all the things her mother used to say, she smiles. Lantis is there, crushed under rubble, begging for mercy. But Lepen just asks why he would show mercy to a pervert like him. The guy starts swearing by his lord's name that he'll spend the rest of his life paying for his sins. Our boy says that, judging by the expression, he did look pretty sincere. And Lantis says yes, he can trust him, he'd never do anything evil again. But Lepen says, I hate how you people think. Believing a simple confession erases all the sins you committed. If you truly wanted forgiveness, you should give up on living, not beg to stay in this world. Lantis says not to worry. He was going to die, yes. There was no need for Lepen to dirty his hands by killing someone like him. But our boy simply replies that he already had plenty of blood on his hands, and he wasn't worried about that. Suddenly, he says, all right then, since you said that, I'll believe you. He clenches his fists and says, I believe you're seeking forgiveness, so it's time to pay. Boom, one more punch and that's it, man. He was crushed. Forgiveness was a word that a bastard like him had no right to use. Woo, man, for a second, I thought he was going to let the guy live. I was about to tear my hair out right here, man. Glad he killed him. Thank you. He then turns to the two and asks if they're hurt. Oh my god, I called Selen a girl again. I can't. Selen says he finished healing, so everything's fine. While Cyrus, now all healed up, asks if Lord Lepenhart is okay. He's all emotional that she finally, actually spoke to him for real. Then Selen says that the guys were fleeing and Lepen tells him to come closer. If they took one more step forward, the result wouldn't be anything pleasant. At that, the guy turns around wanting to know how he can help. And of course, Lepen wants to know who sent him. The guy hesitates for a second, and Lepen is already drawing his weapon, saying it'd be best for him to speak up before he has to show him what mercy looks like. The guy wants to know, right, why someone talks about mercy while drawing a weapon. Next scene. Everyone's got blisters on top of blisters, and Lepen tells them to speak already. Then they reveal it was Tarek from the Rolfen merchant group. He lived in a mansion down in the southern region of Jeplin. Just follow Triangle Street and you'll find his house. Lepen knows this is the bastard who in his past life abused Cyrus for 10 years. And when he rescued her, this was the first guy he wanted to kill. But when he got there, the bastard was already dead in bed. A soldier asks if he's thinking of visiting Tarek and warns that he better drop it, because as strong as he is, that guy controls the second largest merchant group and attacking him would be like attacking half the empire. But Lepin replies that he knows very well who that man is and what kind of person he is. He starts walking off and says that, as promised, he's not going to kill anyone. But they better hold on tight because it's cold out here. Strangely, the guys are already healed, clinging to this strange turn of events. The scene shifts to Verit's house, where he asks Tarek where the elf is. The chubby guy replies that he doesn't know. Apparently, the crew is taking longer than usual. The friend wants to know what's with the elves, and he says they were rewards from Lord Lantis. The weird part, though, is that there's a commotion outside. And man, that noise is the guys getting launched with a punch to the head. But Lepin knows it's just some random hired soldier and tells Scylla to heal him so they don't die. The kid's so sweet he's even using a spell to erase the memory of the attack so the guy won't be traumatized. Not to mention, at the same time he's erasing the memory so no one knows he passed through there. Lepin says it's good to have him around. If he were alone, he'd have invaded, cut that guy's throat, and no one would have known a thing. Suddenly, the orc appears saying that Talcata will stop the human intruder. Then our boy, who speaks all languages, tells him that he who carries the blood of warriors should know. The man he's protecting isn't worthy of that protection. So why draw his sword for someone like that? Talcata replies that he is a warrior, and a warrior carries his sword when he has a job. How would he keep his honor if he went against his task? Lepin asks if his task is to live as a slave. That man wasn't his mentor. Talcata says it doesn't matter. A warrior answers the tasks he's given, even if they were forced on him. Our boy smiles. Orcs really never change. While Scylla is impressed that he speaks orc language, Cyrus is surprised too, but says that this time she's the one who'll handle it. He questions it, and she says there's no need to worry. Her weapon this time is different. Talcata says he feels like the weak elf has now become a strong one. Then our boy tells Scylla to keep an eye out, right? If anything were to happen, it'd be good to use a little power. Then he walks right past the orc, who asks if he's going to ignore him. Our boy says his target is ahead, and that he shouldn't dishonor the opponent by turning his back either. That works on the orc, who says that actually makes a lot of sense and lets our boy pass. Near one of the doors, Lepin immediately recognizes the smell. These were the famous drugs the nobles liked. Then he opens the door, and his expression instantly changes. Man, there's blood all over the curtains, and the two weirdos turn around asking who the hell this bastard is. They start shouting for the guards, wanting to know why that guy entered the room. Lepin then says that he's seen all kinds of filth in life, but this was something that even he couldn't believe. The drugs keep spilling out of the jar, and Tarek gets up wanting to know who he is and what he thinks he's doing there. The protagonist, though, just looks down at the floor and sees a bunch of dead elf girls. Right away, his expression is one of someone who is happy. Tarek starts calling for Talcata, asking where the guards are. Seeing that no one's coming, he asks how much money the guy wants. Maybe he wanted a share of the market, or maybe he was from the Tavan merchants. None of that, though, mattered. He just had to say the amount, and Tarek would double it. Lepin then says that clearly, he's been living like this his whole life. He may have missed the chance in the last life, but this time was going to be different. First punch to the stomach, and he's already vomiting everything he ate. The fat guy's wondering what he did to deserve something like this. Lepin grabs him by the hair and says he's the bastard who tormented Cyrus. Man, I think he shoved his hand inside him and ripped him from the inside out. The blood splashed all over the other fool, Verit, who's standing there yelling that he's crazy. He had killed the man with his bare hands. Lepin says that for people like them, who don't see slaves as human, that should even seem unfair. And the idiot is still trembling, saying, "You killed a man, you're a murderer. What are you?" He still has the nerve to say he lived an honest life, and not an ounce of shame for all he's done. At the door, Cyrus and Scylla are just watching. They see the body on the floor, and Cyrus says that was brutal. Lepin then says that the other guy deserves an even worse death. Stylen steps in, saying he agrees. Then the little elf girl comments that he seemed pretty calm about it. Our femboy replies that he's been an adventurer for a while, so he's used to it. Then he smiles and says that Cyrus managed to beat Talcata. The poor guy said she was so strong he didn't even have a chance. Lepin uses his perception and realizes that the orc who seemed half dead there could still be saved. At that moment, Verit yells out, saying he remembered the damned girl. She was the slave he had returned. Cyrus, however, wants to know if it was him who killed that girl on the floor. He says that doesn't matter, and she starts drawing her sword, warning that his life wasn't worth that girl's, but that was the minimum to be paid. Vera replies that it made no sense to be killed over a simple slave. But man, he already got cut, apparently. No time for much talking, stabbed again. As she spins the sword, Lepin is just watching. The girl's rage wasn't small. Sometime later, under the moonlight, in the middle of the forest, all the slaves had gathered around a campfire. Talcata says there were 17 elf women and 9 orcs. These were all the slaves who survived in the mansion. Cyrus thanks him. He says there's no need. His sword had been broken, and now her master was his master too. Stylen comments that in terms of gender, yeah, it's a bit unbalanced. And the reason is obvious. There was no such thing as a male elf slave. The pointy-eared folks are all snuggled up, chatting in elven tongue, which no one understands, while Cyrus thinks that maybe she misjudged who Lepin really is. He then shows up, apologizing for taking so long. Stylen wants to know what that is in his hand. He says it's the document of all the slaves. It wasn't easy to find since it's something important. Sillin asks how he managed to find it, and Lepin replies, "Easy. You just hit the right person and suddenly the thing shows up." The femboy comments that he really acts like a careless idiot. Poor guy says that in 50 years of life, no one's ever said anything like that to him. And he realizes, yeah, in this life he's being way more reckless. Apparently, the rough personality had taken over. Sillin wants to know what the document is for. Lepin says, "You'll find out soon enough." Then he shows it to everyone and says he doesn't want anyone there to keep living as slaves. So starting today, he guarantees freedom for all of them. But this group, right man, who were born and lived their whole lives as slaves, are a bit confused. What does freedom even mean? They don't even understand it. Poor things. They say the new orders from the master are too complicated. Our boy is there, disheartened, right man. They didn't even understand the concept of freedom. Sillin wants to know if he plans to become a slave trader. Lepin says obviously not. He has no intention of selling these people. Sillin asks him not to give up being an adventurer, to not just live a life sitting still. But our boy says that now they carry the Rolfing seals, so they no longer belong to Tarek. That was kind of just a way to ensure these people had a safe place to live. He knew the sad part was that they didn't have a home or place to return to, and that's why they had no desire at all to be free. Just throwing them out into the world would be the worst thing, and that's why he was going to first start changing how they think. The scene then shifts to Sebald's trading post, who's there asking why all of Tarek's slaves are now with him. Our boy says he'll find out soon. But for now, what he wants is for Sebald to take them, hide them, and keep them safe. He was going to receive some interesting news tomorrow, and then Sebald would know the truth. But he better hide them well, because otherwise he'd be the main suspect. Sebald is too scared to ask what happened. Then Lepin tosses in 100 coins and says that's to cover the costs for these people. The guy thinks our boy just robbed the mansion. Imagine when he finds out the truth. So he says he has a place outside the city of Jeplin, where his other slaves live and no one would suspect a thing. But Lepin says he only wants that place if it means no one will be mistreated. Sebald says not to worry, but without gold coins, it might be too much. That's when Lepin tells him this money is to guarantee their education. Of course, the guy finds that strange, right? He says they must have already received plenty of training under Tarek. But what Lepin wants isn't training. He wants them to learn how to read numbers, write, study philosophy, history, all that. The man is confused. He's never heard of slaves receiving that kind of education. Why do something like that? Lepin, though, says it's not so strange if you think about it. The more skilled the slave, the better it is for the master. But Sebald, right man, sees it differently. To him, a slave can't even learn something like that. So Lepin replies, "Doesn't matter. I'm the one paying, so just make sure they get the education. Whether it's worth it or not, doesn't matter to me." Even though he finds it weird, the guy accepts. The only problem is that few academies would accept an offer like that, which scholars would want to spend their time teaching non-humans. But that's something Lepin had already thought about. He says those scholars also teach regular people, and regular people need money. Those are the ones they'll hire. The guy thinks it's madness. How can someone who hasn't even finished school teach anything? But man, Lepin is having to argue every step of the way, bro. He says he doesn't want advanced knowledge, no, just the basics. Finally, the guy agrees, saying fine. He'll do all that, even though he still thinks he'll come to nothing. The truth is, this idea of educating slaves isn't even new. Someone had already proposed something like it in the past, but the nobles never embraced the idea. Why do you think that is, right man? They wanted to maintain the belief that only humans were superior enough to learn complex knowledge. And now Lepin knows he needs to start using that foolish belief to his advantage. If the slaves learn something like that, it kind of breaks a major argument. At the same time, it's more than obvious that a long time ago, these rules were made like that to prevent the other races from becoming intelligent and starting resistance movements. Obviously, most humans alive today have already forgotten that it started because of that. As soon as these slaves got educated, Sebald would be shocked by the results. Right then, if he's smart, he'll want to start educating his own slaves to increase efficiency. If that works, it might become a sort of virus that spreads across the entire continent. Because merchants, man, they just want to make money. They don't care about anything else. The plan is to change perception, something he wasn't able to do in his past life. Ah, you sly one, you're all brainy and magical. Huh, you rascal. The scene then shifts back to the inn. And the poor guy is now asking if Sillin doesn't have a few coins to lend him. He had given everything he had to Sebald, right? And now he's broke. Cyrus asks if he wants her to sell the clothes they bought for her, and he says no, there's no need for something like that. Then she lets out a little laugh, and he realizes it's the first time he's seen her smile since he took her out of slavery. The next morning, the entire city of Jeplin fell into chaos. That's because Tarek, the leader of the merchants, and Verit, the heir of the Karen merchants, were brutally murdered. The identity of the culprit was unknown, and everyone who survived woke up with scrambled memories and had no idea what happened. 2 weeks later, our favorite femboy is asking for Philinence's blessing over their man already heading into the dungeon. The pillar of light shoots up in the middle of the skeletons there, and right away Cyrus comes in slashing while Lepinhard is tanking there, taking just 1 damage. He realized the little dew he formed was pretty good. That's because Sillin was syncing up really well with Cyrus. It was strange that someone so young like him had so much battlefield experience. How young was he when he entered his first fight? At this pace, he'd end up even stronger than the old rival, right? St. Ellen. What's strange is why this kid didn't become famous in the past life, right? Did he die young? He asks if the boy is hurt, and he answers that this so-called ruin of Elysian has stronger creatures than over in Fulton. That place there, like he just said, is the Elysian Mountains. And there's something extremely important there for Lepin to recover his magic. In front of the door, he says he finally found it. But Silent warns him, man, that thing was sealed with magic. No way they were opening it easily. What was the plan now? He should have hired a mage. But Lepin says, give me a few seconds and I'll prepare a spell. Right then, Silent gets confused, man, asking himself, what do you mean? Our boy tells him to calm down. It's just that in the past, he was a warlock. Obviously, that messes with the kid's head even more. What's this deal about a guy who fights and uses magic? The bastard was already good at martial arts, awakened aura, and above all, was smart. The world really was a mess. Meanwhile, he's a poor priest who can't gain an ounce of muscle. But Silent wants to know, right, what's he doing just standing there? Our boy explains he knows how to use magic, but he has to gather enough time, the amount of mana. It takes a little while. So he starts speaking in a strange language and calls upon the names of the elders. By the power of the seal, he asks for the door to open. Man, the thing actually works right. It's like he was a 10-circle mage in his past life. Silent immediately says he has to drop that warlock title, man. He took 13 minutes to open a door. Lepin, gritting his teeth, says the important thing is that it opened, man. And he went all the way there for an item called the Voice of Elysian. He was the first mage to reach 10 circles because of something like that and would go crazy if he couldn't get it. But man, his expression changes when he sees the room is empty. In the middle of it all, there was just a staff lying there. On the way back, he's all worn out, asking himself how this happened. It made no sense at all. Silent says it's obvious, right, man? Someone explored it before them. After all, right, the ruin doesn't belong to anyone. But Lepin knows. That ruin was only supposed to be discovered 17 years from now, and he was the one who discovered it. Clearly, the future is changing. Silent, though, showing a little piece of wood, says at least they didn't return empty-handed. That looked like a great artifact. Cyrus calls it by its elvish name, getting wrapped up in energy, man, and damn dude, it's the demonic bow of Naylan, a magical weapon summoned through magic that caused more damage the more the person concentrated. It looked like something ordinary, but it was made from the sacred tree of the elves. One arrow disintegrates the whole tree. Holy hell. Why would someone leave that behind? Who stole the thing our boy wanted? Silent says he'd never imagined that that little piece of wood, right, was such a rare weapon. And Cyrus comments that really, it was something amazing. Then the little femboy wants to know why someone left such an incredible item behind, and right, how did he know it was an artifact? Lepin knows, right, because back then he met Cyrus and she told him, but he answers that he just heard around. His friend then asks him not to be sad. There were plenty of ruins across the continent. But Lepin knew there was nothing that could replace the Voice of Elysian. It was the only artifact in this world that could restore the magical power he once had. Sometime later, he arrives at the village of Gihalan, and man, the boys were served a feast. The tough cook says she hopes they enjoy it a lot, but not to the point of running them out of food. They're all complimenting it, and she says their cook really is very good. It was just a shame that recently, there had been some arrogant folks around who wouldn't stop complaining about the food they served. Silent asks who those people were, and she answers that it was some knights from a noble family who passed through there a week ago. They said something about exploring some ruins nearby. Right away, Lepin is already handing over a coin and telling her to tell him more about it. She says Viscount Kelburn came with an expedition team. The strange thing was that everyone on the team seemed much stronger than him. In fact, there was a knight clad in gold from head to toe. You could tell he was strong just from how brightly the sword shone and how the armor reflected. But at least he was a really respectful guy. Lepin knows very well who the famous knight with the shiny outfit is, dude. Then the scene shifts to a castle, where someone thanks this captain Eustace for his work. He replies that it was all thanks to Viscount Kelburn. But the Viscount says, come on my boy, it's thanks to your reputation and everything the Knights of the Golden Kingdom are doing in this region. It was an honor to witness your skills up close. Eustace says it was nothing much and then announces that, as promised, a third of the artifacts will go to him. And obviously now our protagonist must already be heading in the direction of these guys. Back in the meeting after they said, right, that he'd have to keep a piece of the relics, the old man said that was fine. For him, it was a privilege to fight alongside a knight, so he didn't mind. The bastard's saying that because he already has enough money, and having a connection with a guy like that was more important. Look at this artist. Dude, he made a split painting to represent how separated they are. Big brain. Eustace wants to know what Kelburn's going to do with the adamantium or chalcum they found. He replies that he's already sent some guys to craft some weapons and armor. Eustace says that from the looks of it, he must have countless talented dwarves, right, man? Suddenly, he laughs and calls his daughters. I didn't get what was so funny, but he's going to do the obvious, right? Tells his daughters to introduce themselves to Eustace. Says he knows Eustace is married, but he wants to build a good relationship. I'm not understanding, but my guy, Eustace is Sigma in relationships. He says that in this life, he has no intention at all of getting involved with any another woman. Whoa. That made Kelburn even lean a bit sideways, right? Did he offend the bastard? He asks something about the guy's younger brother, but right then, Eustace shatters the glass, his hand bleeding, and says he doesn't have any younger brother. Everybody starts shaking bro. He just apologizes. Suddenly, the door bursts open and a guy says that a demon appeared from one of the artifacts. I thought it was like a metaphor, but there's a half-horse man with sights on his elbows, sending soldiers flying everywhere. Eustace takes a look and sees that it was probably a summoning artifact that got mixed in. It was just weird that no one noticed something like that. Then his expression changes and he clenches his teeth, wanting to know what that idiot thinks he's doing. Someone starts approaching the fight, carrying a base shield with a sword on his back. Man, this kid's got a guts from Berserk vibe. Doug, y'all feel that too? Just me? Alright. The mages are getting some attack orbs ready over there, calling for the great Eustace, and the others are throwing some ice attacks. Man, it's chaos everywhere. Soldiers on the walls, bro. This devil won't give up. Then the brother raises his sword and says that now that the foot is immobilized, they just have to wait for the captain. But then another guy looks back, desperate, and asks what the hell Russ thinks he's doing. Apparently, Russ is our deep web guts man, still charging and saying he's going to take down the creature. He jumped in all on sheer willpower, but I've got a feeling he's going to starve. The slash looked dead on. Blood even spurted, but the boy, right man, he got smashed and thrown to the other side of the gate. He gets up kind of crook when suddenly a barrage of fire flies in and hits the creature in the chest. Someone tells Mr. Lot to leave the idiot there and maintain the perimeter. Russ calls out to Eustace, who turns and tells him to stop calling him by name. They weren't brothers, since he was born from someone with a dirty body. Did Russ's father get with another species, or was it just some girl from honest work? Eustace, looking at the creature, says it's Stephian, a monster only those who use aura can defeat. He tosses the sword to the side, does a few moves, puts it in front of his face, and calls for Eldred to awaken. Ah, so you're a Power Ranger, huh, sneaky one? Look at the little armor showing up on the boy, dude. Now it's clear why Leppenhart recognized him just by the armor and golden sword. And apparently we're not even going to see the fight. We're already back with our boy and the little femboy, who's telling our guy that Eustace is one of the strongest magic swordsmen on the whole continent. Some even say he's as strong as aura users. Ah, so he's not one? I thought the guy was the badass man, he's out here starving. Leppen, however, doesn't care about that. He just said that Cyrus looks beautiful in that little pajama set. Then Silent comments, right, that even though the guy uses magic sword stuff, will he really handle someone who uses aura? Leppen says it's hard to say. The Eldred armor was the most powerful weapon that existed in that era. The problem is, it wasn't easy to wield the power it gave. That item was made from the true gold of Eldril, a material infinitely more resistant than mithril. Both the armor and the sword were considered masterpieces of the Silver Age. Wearing that item lets you create countless spells with a simple command. But the combat ability still depended on who's using it. Then Eustace says he'll become one with the feather that rides the wind. The creature starts approaching, but he goes in with a vertical slash, calls for Eldred to awaken again, aims for its head, boom, an 8-circle explosion. Back in bed, our boy says that the Tens family has been doing tons of research into Eldred's power. After all, they know that just having a powerful tool doesn't make anyone invincible. Selin comments that he seems to respect the magic swordsman a lot, right? Normally, people who rely on aura aren't like that. Leppen explains it's just because the way House 10's master armor use was above most swordsmanship. Back with Eustace, he's there mid-fight prepping an attack. For the love of God, every knight's gotta read like 15 magic bubbles. I'm just gonna say he threw out an attack, alright. While he's killing the beast, Leppen's explaining. Not everyone who trains in swordsmanship can awaken aura. However, the golden armor always stays with the most important person of that generation in that house, so right, a knight like this always exists. That's why this guy's house is so powerful. They're guaranteed to have a knight in every generation who's as strong as an aura user. He comes in for another attack now, this time calling for the blessing of the goddess of ice, and finally seems to open a crater in the beast's chest, and everybody celebrates. While he's there in his swag after killing the monster, Leppen's in bed wondering if he could beat that guy. Silin asks if our boy's planning to fight the Tens family. Leppen says no, but he has to recover the artifacts. Silin, Dan him is way too honest. He says he helped our boy before, right, because it was kind of the right thing to do, freeing those slaves who were suffering. On the other hand, House 10s had honestly explored the ruin and took the artifacts, so right, there was nothing wrong with what they did. If you were to take them now, it would be the same as stealing. Leppen realizes he'll have to convince the Dan kids somehow, and so he says he's going to reveal the truth, that they're companions. Apparently, he mentioned right about having Master Gerard and said that he needs to retrieve the artifacts the Master hid in the dungeons, and one of them was that one. Poor Silin's over there thinking, right, that it makes sense, right? Our boy argues that of course it does, otherwise how would he know the paths and everything else? He feels bad for having to lie to Silin, man, but he just can't help it, dude. He needs those artifacts. The kid, though even being deceived, says he finds it strange. No matter how valuable those items were, Leppen didn't seem like the kind of person who wants to steal from others, which makes him realize that he really must need whatever it is. That damn femboy can't be fooled, right, man? Leppen just says he really needs it. Back with Usus, a brown officer is showing up there praising him, saying it was incredible, wasn't it? Sephian didn't stand a chance against the Golden Knight, but Usus just tells them to clean everything up and stop bothering him. Then he glances at Russ and Man, I'm already feeling sorry, and says that someone who can only do a vertical slash is useless. He should stop going around saying he belongs to the House of the Sword of Tens. That thing about only doing vertical slashes, doesn't that come from a story or something? Like the Lazy Noble, don't know if you've seen that one where he, right, only does that, just vertical slashes. And he's a beast, huh, dude? Russ is there saying that he still belongs to the house and to the sword he carries too. Next day, there he is again doing his downward slashes. At least the guy's determined, right, dude? The guys show up in the morning wanting to know why he did that stupidity in the middle of the fight yesterday. He goes back to training and answers that he was trying to kill the demon, obviously. The guys say he's an idiot. Why do you think anyone was asking for his help? All he had to do was wait for the captain. Russ turns around and says, I am also from House Tens, and if you have a problem with that, just challenge me to a duel, I'll accept. I thought the guys would actually challenge him to a duel, but they just said he was a bastard and walked off. The story says Russ, he's strong, but he only learned one single skill, the downward slash, right man, and the breathing technique. Wait, so that's two already now? Any sword master who saw his downward slash would say it was a magnificent skill, but besides that, right, he had absolutely nothing else. House Tens may have forgotten the true way of the sword, but as a noble house of knights, even their guards were very skilled. But for some reason, dude, Russ's father was there saying he couldn't teach him anything. That's because all the vassals, everyone in the house, was against teaching techniques to an illegitimate child. The father says that that was the fragment of the path of the sword. Those were the movements that would lead someone to the path of aura. Maybe one day he could awaken that power they lost long ago. Got it. So even with everyone against it, the father gave him the tip about the downward slash. And Russ, since then, dude, has been on that grind. The boys focused, dude. The problem is that House Tens, which once was considered the one with the most powerful swordsman, now right, had this kid there who didn't do anything. Everyone considered him pathetic and said he only made the house's reputation even worse. At the window, Usus watches and says that this pathetic excuse of an attack wasn't going to take him to the highest level of swordsmanship. That's because all the other fragments of the path of the sword had already been lost. Unfortunately, his brother was an idiot, but still, that child. So you think you're Itachi now, huh? Sitting by the window playing the edgy villain, and when the boy gets close you pretend you don't like him. But you do like the kid, don't you, you sly dog? Russ is over there exhausted, focused, and yelling. And Usus from afar says he's a genius. Now I don't know if he likes the boy, if he doesn't like him, if he thinks he's a genius, or if he thinks he sucks. I'm confused. What did you know is that there's a Leopardheart out there in his cloak dude moving through the forest saying it's better to try and sneak in this time. What's making him angry is that damn Viscount has a gigantic castle. No wonder. That's the home of the guy who controls all the mines in the region. The poor soldiers were there like, ship's over, time to rest. And then bam, got smacked in the back of the neck by Leopardheart and went night-night. While the two of them are walking down the hallway, talking about the knights about the guy with the armor. What they don't notice is that there's a Leopard up in the ceiling dude, asking himself why he's suddenly living like a gecko. But he moves along going from pillar to pillar and realizes that the life of a thief isn't that bad after all. Maybe he was born talented for this. Already seeing the guys in front of the door, he knows the ones with the slightly better armor belong to House Tens. But the first one already takes an elbow to the gut, and the other goes down in a rear naked choke. He ties the suckers up, walks up to the door, and notices that unfortunately, it's got heat and motion detection. He can spot it easily. The bad part is that it's kind of hard to disable. On the other hand, if it's a magical barrier, it has to be powered by some kind of core. He sees a stone on the floor, and when he picks it up, he notices some markings. As soon as he destroys it, the barrier drops, and there he is inside the hall. Right away, he starts recognizing a harp and other items. It was all the stuff from that place. He notices the order and names are a bit wrong, right? Like whoever touched it didn't know what they were grabbing. He's zooming through the corridor, knocking everyone out, but the hard part is holding back so he doesn't kill anyone. The mages are casting some kind of fireball spell, man, and our boy grabs a dude and uses him as cover. The guy calls him a monster, but our boy knew that guy's clothes had magical protection. The guys rained down a volley of arrows, which on Lepin's body felt like someone threw water. The problem is, suddenly some kind of liquid-like chains hit him and start clinging to his body. Lepin's impressed. They already realized they can't capture him, so now they're just trying to immobilize him for a while. It was hard to admit, but these knights really were trained. That's when someone slams a shield on the ground. Russ comes running and says he's gonna make him suffer by the sword of Tens. Another soldier tells him to fall back, while Lepin wonders, what the hell does this idiot think he's doing? Man, the problem is, he's coming in hot with that downward slash dude. Strangely, Lepin seemed to know who Russ was, he just couldn't remember exactly. The steps were normal, the body was normal, but that downward slash was surreal. The attack looked like it landed clean, but my god, right dude? Lepin just used the chain to stop the sword and gave him one to the ribs, snaps fingers that sent the boy spinning. Our boy's confused, wondering how it's possible for someone to have such a powerful downward slash and at the same time be so bad at fighting. He was the most weirdly unbalanced person he's ever seen. But right then, someone starts giving a speech. Dude, you already know it's gotta be that damn Usus. Our boy defends himself, but the problem he didn't want to face shows up, the damn Golden Knight, who says it's strange that someone so skilled would be invading people's homes to steal. Lepin replies right that he has his reasons, man. Obviously, though, the guy says the reasons can wait till later. And our boy's already charging in. Dude, at the Academy of the Undefeated, they teach that whoever strikes first wins. Usus charges in too. Our boy dodges the sword strike and goes in for a punch. The knight manages to dodge it. The two of them pull back, and the army guys are wondering what Usus is doing and why both of them stopped in the middle of the attack. Seems like they both made kind of a suicidal move, but since both attacked, both would have ended up dead, and so both backed off. Suddenly, Usus starts chanting his whole thing and activates his shadow ability. But poor guy's using magic against Lepinheart, who knows them all. Our boy moves his cloak, disperses the shadows, and now the guy's already wondering how he knows that power. Our boy's about to say that magic is a new thing for him. But the damn guy is already coming in for another attack. Once again, he dodges, and now, dude, every time he rushes toward a spot, he's got dodge and attack. And man, now he came back and landed one right in the chest. The blondie can't believe the blow actually did damage through the armor. But he shoots off another combo of magic, calling for the goddess of fire, goddess of ice, goddess of who knows what. And Lepin's realizing that the rate things are going, his life's at risk. Another explosion inside the walls. And from the middle of the smoke, or he is now, realizing he's gonna have to take this seriously. The guy had used a material destruction spell that's an extremely advanced kind of magic. And Usus, once again, wants to know how the hell this bastard knows how to deal with all the spells. The only way a human could fight him on equal footing would be if the person was an aura user. Then he activates a decomposition ability and a purplish toxic mist forms around Lepin. But he also knew that you could neutralize that with a simple air shift. One stomp on the ground, the attack breaks, and he's already face to face. Clean hit, he manages to block again with his sword. And the bastard is still thinking about whether our boy has aura, right man? But now he says things are going to be different. He's sure now the guy knows how to use aura, so he's going to respond accordingly. While dodging the attack, Lepin thinks that this damn magic really is dirty. In his past life, he always thought it was only fighters who use sneaky little tricks, but now he realizes that's not quite how it works. From afar, the other knights are just watching everything explode. Meanwhile, Usus wants to know why an aura user is acting like this. That's because our boy isn't even using all of his power, since the techniques are kind of easy to identify. He didn't want to associate this theft with his master's academy. And Usus starts noticing. He had the physical prowess and the power of an aura user. So why wasn't he using aura? If that was the case, he was going to lose there without doing anything. So then he calls for Eldrad and Eldrin to awaken. I think that's the armor and the sword. In the very same second, Lepin realized the danger had arrived, and the bastard's charging at him with everything he's got. Strangely, Lepin looks at it all and thanks the guy for being the Golden Knight. The attack looked like it was going to land straight on, but hit a barrier. Our boy had activated the spiral guard. Yeah, I remember he had learned that one, right? It took him longer to learn. It's what the teacher said. A blinding flash clouds everyone's vision while the brother is calling for Usus. Boom, explosion, and from the middle of the smoke, our boy was already out to there. The sucker is talking to himself like, that's impossible. How did this guy block that ability? And man, our boy did block it, but came out wrecked. The spiral guard activated too late. He jumped off the top of the building toward the river. One of the soldiers asks if Usus is okay, to which someone responds that they urgently need to find out which artifacts were taken. On top of that, they were supposed to deploy a team to track this guy down. They couldn't let him escape. The guy says right, that if someone jumped from that height, he'd be dead. But Usus knows that someone like him would never die from something like that. Suddenly, Cyrus wakes up in the room. She gets up startled, saying something's wrong, and Scylla asks what happened. She says she can't explain it, but she has a bad feeling that something happened to Lepin. Dude. Next day, they're already talking about capturing the two little bandits. And Cyrus is on the run, while Scylla is saying he's a real man, masculine, he can't be carried around like that by some ordinary lady. We see a soldier giving a coin to a guy. That's because the whole town's been tasked with tracking them down. Man, what is this attack on Titan going on here? Everyone on the rooftop shouting at the intruder to stop moving. She had nowhere to run, so she was supposed to drop her weapons. But man, Cyrus just pulled out that legendary bow and bam, right in the face. Usus asks what's going on, and the guy apologizes, saying that for some reason, all these bandits were very skilled. He says it's all right, he'll handle it from here on out. Cyrus calls for Scylla, right, telling him to hop in her arms again. And the poor guy is over there wondering when Lepin's gonna start his muscle training. At that moment, they hear someone calling for the Blade of Wind. Definitely must be the announcer guy again, shouting out all the powers. And Cyrus is already running off carrying Scylla. What is this? The guy has golden armor, golden sword, and he floats. And our bronze elf girl recognizes him right away, man. And Usus finds it strange that an elf was carrying such an expensive blade like that. Here comes the femboy buff dude giving him the courage of a lion, and Eustace notices that this weird little group wasn't just some common bandits. Our femboy is thinking that Dan Lepin underestimated these guys and now dragged everyone into this mess. Man, in 1 second, Eustace was face to face with Cirrus. Poor girl managed to block but got thrown far. I didn't really get how we got here, right? But man, I imagine soon enough they'll all connect. We then see that after falling into the river, our boy woke up all bandaged up, and going up against that guy without using all of his techniques clearly was a stupid idea. But whatever, the result wasn't that bad. He managed to recover the voice of Elysium. What he wants to know is, where is he? A little dwarf then appears and asks how he's feeling, introducing himself as Ethos. Our boy says his name, and the guy asks Taylor to bring him a bit of soup. The story makes a point of saying that this one is an adult dwarf, okay? She's a marriageable age. Why the info matters, I don't want to know. What Lepin does find strange is that dwarves usually aren't this friendly, right? So why this? But that doubt quickly fades when a certain someone else appears. A priest who follows the god Alport named Gelfried, who welcomes him and says their savior has awakened. Lepin, right, is staring at him kind of confused, and the old guy already says that 6 years ago, prophecy was given to the high priest. The one with a body of steel and infinite knowledge would emerge from the dark path. He would be brought by the tears of the north. They would follow him, for he was destined to change the future and bring salvation. The explanation, right? The big smart guy was going to float out of the river currents and save them because he's the badass. That was the explanation the high priest gave to the dwarves. Our boy realizes that the look on the dwarves' faces summed it up. Yeah, this Alport is the god that the dwarves follow, and he's the one who gives the prophecies. And apparently, a new one was given 6 years ago when he reincarnated in this world, which shows that once again this god is present in this timeline and is taking action. Apparently, the guy was willing to support him once again, even though he failed in his previous life. Truly a generous guy, or actually a generous god, right? So he asks if the dwarf healed a human just because of this prophecy, and the guy replies that he would never doubt the words of Alport. Sometime later, the little dwarf girl is saying that his recovery is amazing. He gets up and says it's thanks to the soup she made. The girl is staring at him all cute, wanting to know if she should call Gelfried again. I'm thinking this dwarf girl might have some interest in other races. He starts walking off to find the guy, and she's clinging to his arm. Unlike the orcs, the dwarves manage to keep their culture even as slaves. That's because, right, their roles are different from other races. Among the enslaved, they're the only ones who get specialized work that humans can't do. The knight tells him to say how to find gold mines, and the dwarf says it's easy. You just listen to the voice of the earth. Simple as that. Because of these non-transferable skills, they kind of kept a certain status and managed to keep functioning as a society. The little dwarf girls, though, are feeling a bit unsure. One commenting that they said he's the savior, and the other saying, but he's human. That doesn't make sense. Lepin asks how many are there, and the clingy one says about 60. Then she comments that it's strange. It seemed like there weren't any men in that place. And she says it's because the men are all in the mines and mountains. Lepin knows that actually that's kind of tactic. Humans like to keep the dwarves separated, because if the men start a rebellion, right man? All they have to do is attack the women and children. Then we cut to the little dwarf guy welcoming him again, saying he looks like he's feeling better. Our boy asks not to be called savior, just Lepinhart is fine. Because Gelfried explains that he doesn't really know why the boy is considered the savior either, but at least he could see in his eyes that he didn't see them as slaves. Lepin says yes, he saw the dwarves in a good light, but that wasn't enough to place the fate of an entire race on his shoulders. The old guy, though, responds that he also has no idea why Alport chose a human as the savior of his people, but he clings to the belief that the god would give the best opportunity for the prophecy to make sense. Now how the boy would save them, that was a mystery to him too. His role was just to help him with whatever he needed. Besides that, when he called our boy savior, for some reason he felt like he didn't seem very surprised. Lepin's they're kind of like, yeah, true, since he's already been through this once before. Then he asks why the dwarf called him, and the girl says the high priest wants to meet him. He's the person who receives the oracles from Alport, known as Father Macallan, the spiritual leader of the dwarves. Lepin's already grinning. Macallan is the little dwarf who was with him back at the end when they destroyed the kingdom at the beginning of the story. Then Galfed says he really is quite interesting. He didn't think the boy would accept such a strange story like this so easily. He was wondering how he was going to explain it and convince him, especially since, unlike the dwarves, he doesn't hear the voice of truth. That's why he's impressed. He's acting like he actually understands everything. Lepin's just there grinning, but he knows man, Antares fell in the past life. Following the same path as Alport in this life would only lead to the same story again. However, Macallan was a wise dwarf, and talking to him to look for another solution might be the best option. At that moment, they're close to the Great Forge, which isn't that far really. Galfa then says that he's going to be taken to the Great Forge, and along with him will go the guide, who is the last descendant with warrior blood in the dwarf clan. The little girl now introduces herself as Telestial Hammer. The Sixth Sense dwarf man says now that he felt when he mentioned the Great Forge, the guy wasn't surprised. I guess it's got something to do with this voice of truth thing, right? Our boy says he's used to it. The dwarf keeps getting surprised and wants to know how he accepts everything and knows them so well. Lepin replies that, unfortunately, for now, it still wasn't the right time. Right at that moment, the little fool opens the door calling for the savior. The elder asks Ethos, who's questioning our boy, if he has any companions. An elf and a young boy, real cute, real fine. Why did I say that? I was trying to make a joke, but I lost control. And he tells Lepin that both of them were taken to Viscount Kelburn's castle. The scene cuts to Eustace yelling, saying they have to find out what these bandits are trying to hide. They were to forget any chivalry and use the worst torture possible to make them talk. The guys at the door say he can count on them. Eustace is thinking that that strange elf had a magic sword that would only belong to a captain of the High Order. Not to mention the priest boy had the power of a bishop. He had to figure out who these two were fast. But apparently the soldiers aren't very good at torture. They're standing there asking like, how do you get info out of someone? The other goes, yeah, I don't know. Can't hit too hard or they'll die. But if you hit too soft, they won't talk. Then the door opens and one says it doesn't matter. In the end, they just have to get them to talk somehow. Varys says he got it, and Rento agrees, man, let's hit him on the head. Half an hour later, strangely, the guys are all red in the face. Apparently, they got stunned by Scyldlin's endless rambling. And it's not just any rambling, no. He's already revealed absolutely everything. He already told them that Lepin is from the Martial Academy of Master Gerard. Like he met him in town. Man, wherever they want to know, he's spilling it. He's even talking about the training our boy went through and asking if they don't think it's impossible. Someone training for 6 years and suffering that much doesn't make sense, right? The guys are already on their knees like, tell us more. He's telling the old dude, the speech bubbles are massive. He starts losing his voice, and one of the guys even offers him some water. He thanks him and says he'll keep going, not to worry. One of them even asks, dude, are you sure it's okay for you to be telling us all this? Where's your loyalty to your teammate? Scyldlin replies that he's got nothing to hide. The guy pushes, you sure, man? He's the successor to the Fist King. If people find out he's involved in theft, it'll ruin the team's reputation. But the little egg replies that if that bastard cared about reputation, he shouldn't have stolen anything in the first place. The guy agrees, yeah, that does make sense. Now that they've found out everything, they want to know where the stolen artifact went. That's when Scyldlin says that, unfortunately, that info he can't give, because he doesn't have it, man. They stay to the house, and Lepin still hasn't come back with the items he stole. The guy thinks he's lying and says that finally the bastard didn't tell them something and orders him to stop hiding. They're sure the group must have had a backup plan in case things went south. But Scyldlin just replies that they didn't make a backup plan because Lepin is an aura user, right man? He'd never fail at something as simple as a robbery. The two guys are standing there all confused, asking if this is really how interrogation is supposed to go. They thought it worked differently. Meanwhile, in the middle of the forest, there's Tyla, blushing hard, watching our boy saying he's impressive. That's because he already went, killed a boar, hunted, threw it in the oven. Dude set up the grill and is prepping the food for the two of them. Tila, however, wants to know if he's sure it's okay to hunt there, right? That's Kelburn's territory. Lepin replies that he doesn't really care anymore about such trivial things. She's standing there like, not sure why he's talking about this all of a sudden, while Lepin's deep in thought. If he wants to free the races, he won't be able to follow all the laws. After all, the very act of wanting to liberate the races is, in itself, kind of against the law. He takes a bite of the meat, saying he's gotta hurry up, recover his energy, and settle this. Meanwhile, Tila is just staring at his body, saying that he was healing way too fast. One movement of the arm to the side, man, everything goes quiet for a second and boom, a barrage of energy bursts out. The beast stands up, abs over abs, saying that now he's 100%. Back at the castle, there's Eustace, saying he knows it wasn't a coincidence. Out of all the artifacts, that guy didn't just happen to grab that one by accident. That young man knew something. Then we jump to a month earlier. Someone approaches and asks if he's Eustace the Golden Knight. He tells the guy to identify himself, who says that if he really is the heir of House Tens, he'll recognize that symbol. Upon seeing the crest, he knew it represented the Silver Sages. On the day Eustace became heir, his father revealed the secret passed down to all successors. It was exactly about these so-called Silver Sages, powerful beings capable of destroying nations. They carried all the world's knowledge and wisdom and had technology and magic far beyond what exists today. But they were few, lived in hiding, and never revealed themselves to mankind, except during times of crisis. Within the Silver Sages, even the king of a nation was considered someone mid-rank, and Eustace drops to his knees and salutes the guy, who hands him a scroll and says he'll trust that Eustace will explore the ruins of Elysium in the name of House Tens. He could keep all the artifacts except for one, the one he desired, the voice of Elysium. However, he better know that if he failed, there would be consequences that could affect the fate of House Tens. Eustace is their sweating bullets man. That's when someone knocks on the door. It's Varys and Rento saying they finished the interrogation. They seem to be telling the truth, but it was kind of weird. While they explain, we're shown the guys talking at the gate. The guy is shaking, saying he's scared of what happened yesterday. He was calm when suddenly, boom, he took one out of nowhere and blacked out. When he woke up, he saw that guy destroying everyone with just his fists, mowing down 30 soldiers. And the problem is that now Eustace brought in that guy's companions. He's scared that Bastard's coming to rescue them. Suddenly, the guy looks to the side and feels a chill run down his spine. Man, oh snap. Walking across the bridge is Lepin. He's already arrived, activating the Horn of Calamity. At that moment, Eustace's face is full of fear inside the room, asking if that guy really was a student from the Academy of the Indomitable. Why would a Silver Sage want something that belongs to someone from the Academy? Keep in mind, right, that Scylan probably already told them what our boy said. How his master left that item there for him to retrieve. And I think, yeah, he told all of this. And now we're at that conclusion. Got it? I think so, right? Eustace knows there's a chance it's a false claim. But still, that boy was a bishop with power like Philinus. And someone so young with that level of sacred power surely didn't have the knowledge to fake this kind of stuff. To Eustace, those two were just pawns being used by that guy. And the problem is, they were now going to be abandoned without a second chance. How was he supposed to capture the damn Lepin if he already escaped? He could use the power of House Tens, but even then that would be meaningless, since the voice of Elysium couldn't be recovered anymore. In the middle of that thought, dude, everything is interrupted by the explosion on the bridge. As soon as he looks out the window and sees it, he recognizes the energy man. The bastard was back. And our boy says he heard that his companions were being held in this place. Half the castle was already in flames, and the knights were shouting to show this arrogant fool the power of tens. The guys shout that today's fight won't be like yesterday's, and our boy says the same thing, dude. Today, he wasn't going to hold back. The guy sends Rento and Varus. Yep, the same guys who did the interrogation. But one attack from our boy, and the poor guys come flying back like pieces of trash. Our boy warns, armor is useless against any strike that uses aura. At that moment, the priest over there starts asking the gods for blessings, preparing some magic, and now everyone's coming and buffing left and right. But Lepin just dodges, lands a punch to one guy's face, then calmly decks another in the face, one stomp on the ground, and everyone goes flying. The bastards don't stop though, man. Ice arrows, fire arrows, lightning bolts. Lepin's thinking, mages really are damn scum. One day he's gonna have to deal with these guys once and for all. He punches upward, kind of reflecting the attacks, and the guys go flying back. Lepin knows very well, mages lose focus easily, even from small injuries. With that dealt with, he moves on to handling the priest man. It's a little slap on the back, a light chokehold, a gentle smack on the cheek. The guys are calling him a coward while he laughs. The bastards were 50 against 1 talking like that. Lepin also knows how to deal with priests. You have to make them pass out as quickly as possible. That's because most of them start receiving more blessings the more hurt they are, so it's kind of bad to keep hitting them. The guys keep attacking with everything they've got, but there he is, standing still with arms crossed like a rock. The bastards already noticed. This time he was completely different from the night before. Then the commander turns around and asks why the hell Russ is just standing there. He was supposed to help the team. The guy's pissed. This brat always charges in when no one tells him to, and now that everyone's giving the order, he just stands there. But Russ, man, he's standing still because he's kind of in awe. That was the sight of a radiant light guiding the flow of strength. Sometimes it would expand and strengthen. Sometimes it would move as one. That was what was known as aura. Now he could see why he moved like that and why his power expanded that way. Finally, everything was as clear as crystal, and he naturally understood. Something that had never been taught to him, or maybe could never be taught. Only those who reached the pinnacle of martial arts could understand the true movements. Now he understood what the behavior of a true master was, and the only thing he could do was admire. Then came a barrage of attacks. Our boy dives to the side, looks up, smiles, saying he took long enough. Eustace declares that in the name of House Tens, he wouldn't tolerate any more rebellious behavior. Look what you've done to all these knights. Lepin tells him to stop pretending to be surprised. He'd been hiding and watching for a while now. Eustace is stunned, wanting to know how he noticed, and Lepin already sees it. The guy has the magic armor that gives him power comparable to an aura user, but he's ignorant when it comes to sensory circles and aura expansion functions. He says he knows Eustace wanted to test his abilities, but sending his subordinates like that, man, that's harsh. The rumors said he was a noble and righteous knight, but it turns out he had a shady side too. The soldiers around are saying that Eustace would never do something like that. Lepin tells him to explain then, what took you so long? Were you in the shower or something? The poor guy's all twisted, saying he was just napping and woke up groggy, and that's why he didn't arrive right away. But he's already drawing his sword, saying it's fine. He would pay the price for tarnishing the name of House Tens. And here comes the bastard again in his Power Ranger transformation, Tornado right in front of Lepin, who says that this time he better not hold back. As soon as Eustace jumps in, right man, he's already firing off his magic. I'm gonna read it once so you get an idea of how long this guy's spells are. The eyes of the assassin pierced through shadows, and the leopard's cry empowers his limbs. And with the dragon's sense, I gaze upon the world. It's like that. Oh man, I hope that wasn't it. The flow of purity form in the world shall empower my blade. All of that. For one attack, dude. And Lepin's just standing there waiting, bam, punches the sword. Way easier that way. Aura activated, straight up brawling, punches flying back and forth. The problem for our boy is that even with his body reinforced, he was still taking damage. Yusuf seemed to notice some hesitation and launched more attacks. Thank God, this time without another speech. And off goes Lepin with that spiral defense, whatever it's called, man. At the same time he defended, he was already moving forward, clenched in. Meanwhile, back in the prison, you've got the two waifus of the story wondering what the heck is going on. Cyrus says that it's probably Lepinheart coming to save them, and Scylla replies that she likes to act all distant and cold, but she's pretty convinced he's coming for her. Kinda shy, she answers that she's not really sure how Lepinheart's mind works, but it seemed like he treated her a little too well. Scylla says maybe he really likes a little elf girl, to which Cyrus replies that she also thought at first it had something to do with race, or maybe he just liked a bit of adventure, who knows. But when she looks into his eyes, she can see something more. Scylla says that really, women's minds change when they fall in love. They all start thinking he's different, special, that he has something no one else does. And then after marriage, they go around saying they were fooled. At least that's what he learned back at church. Then he throws himself against the wall saying this damn Lepin, he should have stolen the thing properly. Why did he drag everyone into this mess? Cyrus says that up to now, he's handled everything pretty well. And the little redhead replies that he only accepted it because he should have stopped Lepin, not let him go and do something this dumb. Besides, he knows that there are situations in life where you can't follow all the laws. Cyrus says he's actually quite a mature little guy, and the rascal replies that he's turning 20, so obviously he's only a little younger than Lepin. Shocked, she answers that she thought he was at least 20 years younger than Lepin, not 3. They're in the middle of that whole back and forth when suddenly, Tila opens the door and asks if that's Cyrus there. She steps in, introduces herself, and says she's there to help Lepinheart. Cyrus asks what's going on, is she a dwarf? And Tila just says they'll talk later, alright? First, let's get out of here. Scylla, however, comments that for a dwarf, the only thing different about her was the ears. Already heading up the stairs, Cyrus asks if that's really the only difference he could notice in a dwarf. Seems like he's a pretty innocent little guy. Right then, a soldier shows up on the side asking how the hell those bastards escaped. Man, in a second, Cyrus lands a thick-thighed knee right in the guy's face. While Tila comes rolling in, totally chill, blocks the human's attack, grabs his weapon, and throws him across the room. Scylla comments, damn, she's strong, huh? And she says it's normal. Dwarves are like that. Then she tosses something through the window and tells him to hurry up and go. The flare explodes in the sky, and our boy already knows that Tila pulled it off. At the same moment, Yusuf realizes everything up until now was just a trap, and our boy is there, aura activated, saying, of course it was. Why would I enter through the front and draw so much attention otherwise? But that just makes Yusuf lose it even more, because Lepin still wasn't using all of his strength. He comes at him with another sword strike, our boy dodges to the side, and now moves in to land one right in his face. The bastard still manages to defend and swears he won't be defeated like this. But now Lepin is advancing, without giving him any time to breathe. One more punch, it looks like it hits the ground just as the guy comes from behind. He launched an Edram attack, but our boy takes one step to the side, comes up from below and lands an uppercut right in the gut. But Lepin quickly noticed the sensation wasn't that of a normal body. The guy turned into a bunch of shadow, and several clones started popping up around him. But our boy, being a magic expert, knew that these illusions were simple to deal with. All he had to do was sense the presence of the real one. As skilled as Yusuf was, he really didn't know how to fight someone who had aura. All the clones throw their swords into the air and start reciting the same speech. But in 1 second, Lepin's already face to face with one of them asking, you the real one? The punch lands clean in Yusuf's stomach. He's shocked. How was he found? But to Lepin, man with aura and mage experience, that was easy. Still, the bastard doesn't give up. He prepares another attack saying he doesn't know how, but the House of Tens will not fall. Fires off another one of those speeches while our boy just activates Spiral Guard. Another speech, Spiral Guard. Another speech, and you already know, right, dude? It's Spiral Guard, Spiral Guard, Spiral Guard. My god, when is this going to end? Yusuf wants to know what the hell that ability of his is that reflects everything. Lepin says other aura users can't use this ability. Not because it's hard, but because it's extremely risky. Every aura user can expand their barrier in a uniform way around themselves for protection. The difference with the Spiral Guard is you spin your own aura together with your body. Normally, it rips a person's body to shreds, but his, right man, trained like steel, stays completely intact. The only problem is that it burns through a massive amount of aura. The upside, it blocks anything. Yusuf wants to know who's backing him. Lepin steps aside and says, that'd be my assistant, over there. Obviously, that just pisses off the poor guy even more, and he instantly calls for Eldred to awaken once again. Man, now the guy comes in with the final boss move, the Light of Eldril. Even Lepin tightens up, he knew that wasn't a move to joke around with. To counter that, he'd have to use his strongest ability too. Oh snap, he called in the Horn of Destruction. This time, he was going to counter it with an actual strike. And bam, here comes the punch of the 4 layers of the Horn of Calamity. The entire castle shakes. The fist that hit the sword shattered the armor. Eustace can't believe a skill like that exists, man, but he's still trying to resist. He realizes that the attack created a kind of explosion pattern, like a rock falling into a lake and sending out ripples. But instead of letting them fade, he gathered them into a single point. Even so, he was refusing to lose like that. Hoof, man. But the fist went straight through in the entire place. The mountain of muscles' clothes were already all ripped, and now the sucker went flying. Normally we say someone exploded into the wall, but this time it was literal dude. And the bastard's just standing there like a total Chad. Meanwhile, the rest of the army is trembling, wondering how the captain lost like that. The most powerful sword of House 10's had fallen. Walking toward the sword, Lepin comments that magical items do self-repair, though it'll probably take at least half a year. As soon as he picks it up from the ground, the guys yell that they knew he was a bandit. But he just hands it back to one of them, saying he had no choice but to destroy everything. That's when the soldier realizes he wasn't there out of greed. Lepin was thinking about taking that sword to Cirrus, but he knows there's another sword, the one she used in the past life, and it's way better. He waves goodbye to everyone, until someone points a blade at him and tells him to stay put. It was that bastard Russ saying it wasn't over until the entire house had fallen. His buddies are asking, like, what do you think you're doing? That guy just beat your brother. The soldier's already thinking of kicking the bastard out, but Russ just walks forward. Lepin, watching, knows as the same guy with the downward slash. At least he didn't seem like much to worry about. Until suddenly the guy's blade gets completely surrounded by blue energy, and Lepin barely dodges. Worse still, the slash actually affected his body. The only explanation for that was that it was an aura blade. The guys asked Russ what the hell he did, and he says he simply reclaimed the Sword of Tens. At that moment, Lepin recognizes the color of that mana, a blue like the sky itself, and remembers the swordsman Cyrus, who came to defeat him, saying he would bring an end to that dark empire. When he says that name out loud, Russ asks how he knows it. Because yeah, his real name is Cyrus and Russ is the nickname. That name, Cyrus Montens, was given when he first began becoming a knight. But since nobody wanted to recognize him as a real soldier, they gave him that nickname, Russ. Lepin wonders how he didn't recognize this bastard sooner, since he knew he was from House 10's. Even though right now House 10's is known for the Golden Swordsman, 30 years from now it would be a different story, because they would have produced the legendary Stellar Swordsman. That would erase the old belief that House 10's relied only on magical weapons for their honor. Strangely, the rest of the group is all shy, wanting to know how he knows Russ's real name, and what's this business about calling him Stellar Swordsman. He's not that amazing, they say. The guy is totally red in the face, but the girl tells him to calm down. He must have been mistaken for someone else, don't worry. Obviously, none of that makes any sense, and Russ knows it. Meanwhile, Lepin realizes this guy is very different from the one he met in the future. Truth is, age changes people, but the recklessness was still the same. The bastard charges again. This time, Lepin has to activate Spiral Guard, jumps into action, defends, and bam, punches him in the gut. But the bastard lands on his feet and reactivates his aura again. Lepin says that being able to use aura like that to defend, right after awakening, is impressive. The fight begins again, and now Lepin's the one being pressured, forced to dodge. And the worst part is it was hard to read his pattern. That's because in theory, every martial art has a foundation, a system built over years and years by martial artists. Even the technique Lepin learned from Gerard, right? It has its own manuscripts. Russ, though, was a wild beast, a classic swing and pray technique. What Lepin found strange is that even when someone fights like that, they usually leave openings, but that wasn't the case here. His attacks moved cleanly, but still didn't break any known logic. A genius like this shows up maybe once a century, and it's no wonder he was called the Stellar Swordsman. And it was with that talent, man, that Lepin suddenly remembered. Cyrus saying that Filthy Orc didn't stand a chance against his sword. That was the bastard who killed Tacid, one of Lepin's subordinates, and his friend. At that moment, Lepin loses it, says this guy is Tassin's enemy, and lands a clean hit on the sword, which instantly cancels Russ's aura. Man, looks like Lepin's about to take this seriously. But Russ still wants to charge in the same way. Right then, he prepares the move he's practiced millions of times. Lepin knew this was a guy who would become a sworn enemy. He had to kill him now and prevent that cursed future. Man, boom, hits him in the gut saying, "Glad I got to meet you this early." And bam, my dude, explosion sends the boy flying far. Swag out right there in the flames. But then the expression changes. Russ rises once more and says that he is from the House of Tens, and they would never fall. Lepin can't believe it. That punch was really meant to kill him. Unlike his fight with Eustace, this one man had zero intention of the other guy surviving. But even so, not only did he not die, he didn't even fall. He might as well be a corpse standing, but he was still standing. Lepin now asks himself, should I kill him or not? Logically, he wants to kill him. But there's something inside telling him he shouldn't. And it's not because Russ hasn't done anything wrong yet. He knows that even at this very moment with the strength Russ has, there's already a chance he could kill someone Lepin values. Getting rid of an enemy at a time like this would be perfect. But he also knows that Tacid, who had the soul of a warrior, wouldn't want something like that. He'd be furious to know that the one who defeated him had been killed and he didn't even get the chance to take revenge. So he says out loud that Tacit really would be mad. He turns around and says he's going to give him the chance to be spared, because Tacit will want that fight. Cyrus asks what he's talking about. Lepin just tells him to survive and get stronger. It was for Tacit's sake that he's walking away alive. In the past life, those two had fought multiple times, and every time they fought each other, their skills rose to even greater levels. You could say Tacit became the great orc warrior he did thanks to the battles with Cyrus. And if Lepin kills this guy now, he'd be affecting his friend's future too. With that, he just walks away, while the kid stays there frozen, watching. But, whoa man, he clenches his teeth and screams, bursting his aura and slamming his sword into the ground. The scene then shifts to the forest. That fight was intense, man. So much happened, Jesus. Now in the forest, the tiny dwarf girl says it's good to see he came back in one piece. Lepin thanks her right that everyone's safe, while Scylla says it's thanks to them that they had to go through all of this. He knew a pilgrim's journey was full of adventure, but he didn't expect to end up in jail. Lepin apologizes, and Scylla tells him he needs to think straight. Cyrus is an elf and a woman. He had to start imagining the kind of things that could happen to her. Right away, Lepin approaches and asks if she's okay, if those bastards didn't do anything. She tells him not to worry, that it was a surprise, but the knights were all well behaved. So now he's there thinking that he better start being more careful from here on out. Everyone now wants to know, right? What was it that he wanted so badly? He shows them the cube, and Scylla says that thing doesn't look like something from martial arts. Lepin apparently fakes it and says he doesn't know what it is either. The master just told him to grab it. But whatever, it's time to get out of this place. Back at the castle, now everyone's got to start rebuilding after the destruction, right man? One guy carrying a beam asks his buddy if it's true. He says yeah, he saw it with his own eyes. Finally, an aura user appeared in tens. Whoa man, the news reached Usus. Let's see how Big Bro's gonna react. Yikes, I can already tell it's not gonna go well, cause he's asking how someone with that filthy blood could awaken something like that. He says it's the fault of that damn father who always favored Russ. The elders praised him for his skill with armor, but behind the scenes, everyone was begging for the birth of someone who could use aura. And now the Tens family had that person. A knight who, all by himself, could elevate the entire family's status. But what does that mean for Usus? He looks at the items that are still slowly regenerating. And whoa man, he picks up the sword and says that he will forever be the sword of House Tens. The scene cuts to the edge of a mountain, where Russ is just standing still, laughing, all happy, a smile on his face. He already knew now that he'd awakened, the entire world had changed. He might not have gotten where he wanted, but now he sees the path. Except right in the middle of that celebration, the bastard shows up behind him, wanting to know why he's so happy. As soon as Russ turns around, Usus says, I heard you awakened your aura. Why don't you show it to me? Russ, all innocent, just shows off his power. Man, Usus looks at it and says it's a wonderful power. Oh my god, I have a feeling about this, girl. Russ is standing there all happy. Finally, his brother was recognizing him. But then, his face changed mid-thought, and the sword had already been driven into his stomach. Seeing his brother's face, he can only ask himself why. And the bastard's still going on, giving speeches and activating his powers, man. At that moment, Russ realizes the guy's trying to make sure he dies. And the bastard says the House of Tens only needs one sword, and he would be that person. Man, I don't know how, but Russ manages to defend himself from the second attack. From afar, people start yelling, asking what that explosion was and what happened. Russ takes the chance to throw himself off the edge of the cliff and falls into the water. Usus knew life was unpredictable. There were countless stories of someone jumping into the water and coming back for revenge. And that's exactly why he had to prepare. He drops to the ground, kneeling, and the guys ask what happened. Right away, he says that Russ attacked him and tried to take his place as the knight of the house. The soldiers immediately believe him and say, yeah, that's expected from someone with filthy blood. As soon as he gained power, he wanted to take everything for himself. They ask where Russ is. He says the bastard threw himself into the lake. For Usus, now everything was perfect. Even if that guy survived, it wouldn't be a problem. Now the whole house would be against him, and he'd never stand a chance against Eldrad. The soldiers are already leaving, saying they need to find that bastard now. And Usus celebrates, saying being seen as a good person always pays off. It's a shame, but that was the farewell to little brother. The scene then cuts back to the forest with our boys' group. Stillin wants to know where he met Miss Tila. He says he fell into the river, passed out, and when he woke up, he was in the dwarves' home. Stillin finds that weird, right? Why would the dwarves save a human? He explains that apparently the dwarves had a prophecy that involved him, and that's why. Tila confirms it and says yes, he's the savior of their race, and that's why she's following him. Stillin thinks it's strange, he didn't even know dwarves worshipped any god like that. To which Lepin explains that they even have priests just like he is. And Tila pokes the guy, saying humans always assume other races don't have anything as organized or sophisticated as religion. But Silent, curious, asks our boy if Alport is an evil god. What did Alport do wrong? Apparently, humans believe in 12 main gods, Outside of them, there's the goddess of the elves known as Eldia, and the goddess of the dwarves, which is Alport. And Scyllan's there thinking he just assumed Alport was a bad god because that's what he was told, but he actually has no idea why. Suddenly, Cyrus calls to our boy and tells him to look to the side. She's not sure, but it looked like someone in the water. And who is it, man? It's the Dan Russ. I had a feeling he'd end up joining the group, and Lepin's already wondering how that kid ended up there. Scyllan asks if he knows him. He replies that it's kinda complicated. He does know him, but not really. The problem is, he's not sure now. Is it destiny? A change in the prophecy. Why is this guy here? Sometime later, Russ wakes up in the carriage, wondering where he is. He immediately remembers the sword to the chest. Eustace had always been the kind of knight too good for anyone to hate. He worked hard every day because he at least wanted not to bring him shame. Deep down, he believed that if he proved his worth one day, Eustace would eventually acknowledge him. But now it was clear. The brother never had any intention of doing that. He laughs like a madman all by himself, and Lepin asks if he's finally woken up. Russ steps out a little awkwardly, wanting to know if it was them who saved him. Our boy says he was about to die with a hole in his chest. It had already been 3 days since they left that place, and now they were in the bad region. He was lucky Scyllan was there. Those injuries weren't something just anyone could have healed. And Scyllan says he only survived because he's also an aura user. Otherwise, for sure, he'd be dead. Russ can only feel anger toward Eustace. And Lepin Man says that, well, he doesn't want to overdo it, but the guy should at least know that his life was saved. He's not expecting a thank you, but also no need to be that awkward about it. They even had to rent a separate carriage just to haul that body of his. Russ starts bowing down, saying that it's all thanks to them that he's even able to breathe right now. Our boy, though, says that he's broke as hell, and the one who paid for everything was Scyllan, so he better be thanking him. Meanwhile, he's thinking to himself, now the future stellar swordsman owes me one. That's a card that could really come in handy. Even if we become enemies, maybe he won't attack me so easily now. That he asks, now that Russ is awake, what's the plan to go back to the castle? Right, our boy still doesn't know what happened. Night falls, and after telling the story, Russ says returning to the family isn't an option anymore. He's probably already seen as a traitor by everyone, a guy who attacked the hare. Lepin knows that in the far future, this guy was supposed to awaken Aura a bit later, and then challenge his brother to a proper duel. That's when he'd win and earn the right to succeed the family. Looks like this time, Eustace found a way not to lose his title. Lepin asks what his plan is now, and Russ looks thoughtful. If he goes back to House 10s, he's marked as a traitor. Then the obvious happens. He says that if it's not too much to ask, he'd like to travel with our boy. Everyone's looking at him wondering why. And he says that obviously he was saved and he's a knight. At the very least, he wants to repay that debt. But since he's been cast out of the family, the only way he can help now is by serving at his side. Lepin clearly isn't too into that idea. He says there's no need to go that far. Russ can just take some gold coins, rent a room somewhere, and disappear. Besides, they don't even know each other. But the kid just says he knows Lepin is the successor of Geared, and that's enough. Lepin knows that in the past life, Cyrus used to travel across all continents challenging aura users to get stronger. But now that he's been branded a traitor and lost all his titles, that's not exactly an easy thing to do. That means he has no choice but to like this video that helps Mamoru make more juicy content for his viewers, activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out.